All right. In theory, live on the internet, if I am believing what I'm reading in front of me.
I'll believe it when
So
I see it.
believe it when you see it. With me today, no sword friends who are currently not watching right now. It turns out maybe advertising that this was going to happen. Everybody made plans instead
Oh,
of.
it's happening. I'm watching it right now.
All right, it's happening. Well, with me today is Sword Friend D. He has a channel, Cerberusarms, and it is full of fun, awesome sword-related content.
Oh,
And he's made some cool stuff and done it with a tone of hilarity that is appreciated. So I will. That is what I know about you, D. But maybe give yourself a little bit more of an introduction.
thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, largely it's thanks to you. You're probably the progenitor of like funny sword videos on YouTube with your drunk sword reviews. So, I'm D. I run Cerberusarms. I also run the Node Gaming channel, and I like swords, and I'm a big fucking nerd. Yeah, so I started doing sword videos kind of during the pandemic. My girlfriend and I were really drunk one night, and we found Matt's drunken sword reviews, and we thought they were really funny. And we're like, "Damn, this is some good shit," you know. And then we looked around the internet, and there were no other good sword videos. No, that's not true. There were some, but all of them were pretty serious. So we were like, we should make a sword video that's kind of has a wider reach, or like basically a sword video that my girlfriend would want to watch. Like that was kind of the litmus test to be like, do you find this funny? Would you enjoy watching this as somebody who couldn't care less about swords? So that was kind of like the start of it. And basically every time I'd write a joke, I'd be like, do you think this is funny? She'd be like, no, you should say this instead. So she's really the brains behind it.
Awesome.
I'm just the face.
I should have had her on the podcast with
Yeah,
this.
you don't even need me, man. Next time I'll have her. Come on. Yeah.
How much? Do you have a joke that like you totally thought was awesome and sword related, and she was like, "No, that's too niche, you
Um,
weirdo."
they weren't. I mean, a couple. She doesn't. I think for most of the jokes I've like made in the videos, they've just been adjusted, like slightly here or there, because she trusts me with my sword knowledge and stuff. But then sometimes I'll be like, is this like, do you care about this? Like, does this matter at all to you? Or, and she's like, I mean, it's kind of interesting. She's like being nice, but yeah, they mostly make them in, and she just makes them a little better, you know.
A little
Yeah.
better, a
Yeah.
little tweak.
What about you? What about you? What made you start doing the sword reviews and like the drunken sword reviews and stuff?
Yeah, that's fair enough. So I had seen some sword reviews
Mm-hmm.
well, I had seen people whack stuff with swords on the internet, and at the time, I had uh, probably a more than modest collection, and I hadn't really ever like pushed one of them to failure. I've had accidents and things where things didn't go the way that I would hope,
Mm-hmm.
but I never like deliberately abused them, and I thought it would be fun to do that and see like how does it feel, how do they act. There's a little bit of learning that can be done if you fancy yourself a swordsman to figure out how that moves. So the first video review that I made was actually because I asked for it. I had bought a sword from Ronin Katana, and I wrote. They asked for feedback. This was pretty early on in the Elite
But this is
line.
your first video?
Yeah, the first video that I made was the Ronin RK series, like 10
Hmm.
years ago. There's a guy at work that knew like a little bit more about video editing that helped me out with it.
Okay.
And then after that, I was kind of on my own. I had like a format, and I learned a little bit about the process. But yeah, anyway, the basic gist is the first reviews I made were more or less written, but the first video that I did was I had gotten some swords from Ronin Katana because I had
Mm-hmm.
made uh, I I promised to do feedback. I didn't give feedback, and then when I did, I used it as like the end of my college career, like market analysis project. So I gave him this like
Whoa.
40-page market analysis PDF that you might contract a consultant to make for you. And I don't know how useful it was, but he was like, "Hey, thanks. Let me send you a sword." And I was like, "No, I don't want a free thing, but if I could get on the short list of people that break stuff,
Yeah.
I'd take you up on that." So he sent me a couple swords to break, and then continued sending stuff after that. But that's how the video started. Is I
Hmm.
kind of just wanted to break a sword because I thought it'd be like fun and I thought it'd be useful and I'd learn something from it, and it was.
And to
And
document and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so I learned a bit, and I was moving. Like the written reviews had a certain audience, but people, when I wrote things out, said like, I don't really have the appetite to see this wall of text. Like, could you make a podcast, or could you do this?
For
Video wasn't
sure.
as popular when I started YouTube, but could you do something where you just put it out there? So I did, and I thought at the time funny was better because
Hmm.
I never fancied myself a scholar, but every now and again I can give somebody the chuckles. So
Yeah.
if I made it funny, then like it kind of excused the lack of information, and it was still like worthwhile watching, even if it wasn't dense in educational material.
Right. Even though you weren't literally Musashi Miyamoto. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But after a while, that kind of stopped. So I thought, like on YouTube, at least what I can do is do something a little bit funny, and then kind of around the like time I had 500 or 1,000 subscribers, like the feedback pretty resoundingly was like, "Could you stop with all your bullshit, though?" Like,
They're like,
I
we want a
I get
wall of
it.
text, please.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, could you be a little bit more serious? Could you change your tone? The information that you have is really useful, even if it's not scholarly. Like, just showing a thing is so rare on YouTube, and doing it clearly, not from a potato, is so helpful that it would be great if I didn't have to hit the mute button right away whenever your voice came on. So could you present the information in a little bit more uh, acceptable manner? And so
Okay.
I did. And so I took that and I was like, all right, I'll speak normally and try not, I'm still maybe have a dry sense of humor, but uh, it's not all for free of smiles and laughs, but I
Yeah.
certainly,
Which is why it's good.
yeah, but I don't do the drunken review. And now I don't know if, I think people might find it funny, but people don't, I don't think vendors particularly like it because none of them are overwhelmingly complimentary. You're not like drunk and like, this is great. I love this. I'm so happy. Listen to
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
voice.
It's
No,
not
you're like, this sucks.
super brand friendly.
No, no, no.
Sorry,
You,
I'm
you
just
have to kind of
posting
pick
this in
apart.
my Discord. I just want people to
Oh yeah.
come in if they have questions. How long into making sword videos did you like? How many sword videos did you make before you did your first drunk review?
Shit. I don't know. Like two.
Oh, damn. Okay, so it was really, really early on.
Yeah. I was
Nice.
I was like, all right, let me do that. And then I dialed it back. And then some people were like more drunk reviews though. So I bounced back and forth between them. Um, and now I do mostly not drunken reviews, but there's a few reasons for that. One, it seems like the goal is to help folks, and it seems like
Yeah.
sometimes humor gets in the way of that. And so if the content not just does better, but seems to hit the mark and actually do what fulfill its intent more,
Yeah.
then I see that as better. I'd rather 10 people see a video that is less humorous in tone, but like helps them make a decision with their money versus 1,000 people that would never buy a sword anyway. Right.
For
That's
sure.
so, but sometimes I can do both though. I would say that like it's tougher. It's humor is, I don't know, like more niche now. It's really, people are really
Yeah.
easy to, it's not that people are really easy to offend, but what people find tasteful and don't changes a lot. And I still have a rather morbid, dry, and dark sense of humor, and so that goes well with sometimes the sword crowd, but sometimes not. And it does, it doesn't always age well, and it also is kind of hard for me to do. Talking like a
Yeah.
movie guy is,
It's also it is definitely like old YouTube style. Like
yeah,
the whole like I'm gonna get drunk and do something is like it is like kind of we're kind of past that time, but it is like a nice little golden age of YouTube that existed right then. So yeah, I get that. That's cool, man. I
you're funny in your videos though. Like, does it ever? I can't say like anyone has tried to drum up an old joke I told about boobs and said like that's not okay anymore.
Yeah.
Uh, but is that something that gives you pause when you're making kind of funny related content? That
No, not really. I um like I really wanted to make self-deprecating humor, or like videos that like the joke is like, people who collect swords are a very interesting group of people. And a lot of them take themselves way too seriously. And it's like, we're collecting swords, guys. Like, this is like 2024. We have like cars that drive themselves and like cell phones and like guns. So to like be really serious about swords is like both funny to me and like and like also kind of like a little sad. So I was like, I gotta like, I want to bridge the gap and kind of like make it accessible for people to just like kind of like not take themselves so seriously, kind of be able to like look at the humor of how like, both like weebs and like neckbeards and like sword elitists and stuff like that. There's a whole subgroup of people that take blades really really seriously, and I'm one of them. So I was like, as one of them, I think if we can all just be a little more lighthearted about it and be able to poke fun of ourselves a little bit, it is gonna be for the best. And I think I was like, people would resonate with that. So that's kind of the humor I did. And a lot of humor I have is like making fun of weebs, and no one cares about them, so no one's gonna be mad.
There's
Yeah.
not going to be a day where it was like, yeah, that was not cool.
No,
You
I mean,
made
if
fun of
there
a few.
are, maybe like, I don't know. I'd wear that as a badge of honor if I had a joke that came back later and they're like, that was too racy. You can't say that. Uh,
The weebs are a protected category of people now. You can't.
yep, yep. When that day happens, I'm screwed. You know. But we'll see.
Yeah.
My
You've
videos would
committed a
be,
hate crime.
yeah. It's the I'm gonna bring disrespect to my family.
Yeah. That's
The My videos have become way more informational, and because of that, I've been getting less views. So I'm like, I need to like chill out on the information a little bit, because I love some of the videos I love watching on YouTube are just like real deep dives into things, and they'll like go into like history and the lore, and I really enjoy those. So I've been trying to incorporate some of that into my videos, to my own detriment. So I'm gonna chill that out for a little bit and make some dumb stuff soon. So
YouTube bringing out the best in your creative process here.
yeah.
What kind of videos like make you feel dirty when you make them? Like, is there anything that you do where you're like, oh, this is for the algorithm?
Um, Luckily with my sword videos, I can kind of like take my time with them. And I don't really like, I only really make a video if I really want to make it. I do have like sponsored videos, which is like important because I, gotta pay the bills. But do have another channel where I usually is what pays my bills. But with my sponsored videos, I'm like very careful with like who I sponsor with and like what I do, and I'm very upfront. I'm like, look, I'm gonna be like painfully honest. So, at best, I'll give you a heads up beforehand, and like maybe you'll know. But maybe the sponsored stuff. But even then, I'm not really like pulling punches. And
Okay.
I really don't do sponsors with people who I think their product's just gonna suck. And like,
Why not? Is it well, I guess why not in the sense of like, is it a professional, like you'll burn bridges kind of thing? Is it the video is no joy to make? Is it that like you don't want
well,
to the
it's just
success
like
from
it
drama?
would feel bad. Like I'll take a free sword from somebody, but like if like money exchanges hands or whatever, like I would just feel bad just like demolishing their company with like a single video and then like being paid to do so. So I'll generally reach out to companies that like I actually want to work with and I think are interesting, or yeah, just cuz I mean I still feel bad about that Dark Sword Armory video. I still feel bad about that because they send me a sword, and I, as a kid, I grew up being like, oh, Dark Sword Armory is so cool. Like, I can't wait to, like, one day I'm going to own one of these sick ass long swords. And, I grew up, and then they sent me the sword for free, and I was like, I want to do this video. I think it's going to be sweet. and they sent me such a terrible sword that I had to send it back to them. And then the second one they sent me was just so bad that I couldn't not say how bad it was. And unfortunately, the videos do way better when you're mean. Turns out being really mean on the internet is like very lucrative. So I, told it like it was, and I can't imagine that did good things for their company because it got a lot of views. It almost has a million views. It's probably at like 900,000 or something, and I'm like, God damn, like
Yeah.
that's a lot for a sword video. Like that's like promoting your brand or the opposite of that. And
I don't know. I kind of
you
this is
think the
something
bad
I've what I wish that I could add to my videos in my laundry list of things that I should probably add for like disclaimers is if the video helps you, like tell the people that you're buying it from. I don't, if you have an affiliate link, it kind of already does that. But if you don't, and some YouTuber helped you in your process or some forum did, tell the people that are selling it because it I think really helps. I have no personal idea how much the content that I make helps or hinders. I don't know. Like sometimes I'll hear vendors say like, "Oh, you said bad things," and like bad things happen to us. But other times, like I'll sing the praises, and there's no like clear distinction of how much or little it's helped.
they
Like
really don't want you to know. That's the thing.
well, it's okay, but like evolution blades, I think I asked Jason because I've sung the praises of evolution blades for a number of years, right? I
Hmm.
remember the first one I got, I was like, oh shit, this is nice. Um, and so when people ask me like, what's the best sword you can buy? I want something, and evolution blades is like in the category of things they'd want. I'm like, this is where your $3,000 to start seems reasonably well spent. Um, but when I asked, like, has anyone ever said, like, yeah, I saw a video about it on this YouTube channel that, it doesn't sound like that's the case. So I have no idea. So it'd be helpful if people mentioned to the companies that they buy from, like what helps them decide what to get and what not to get.
They
Or at
they
least
really should add a little thing like and check out like how did you hear about us? Like especially for swords, I think, because it's such a niche thing. I think that would
yeah,
help a lot.
it,
But
it certainly helped decide if it's worth sending me all of these swords.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I really I don't know. I hope it's helpful. But yeah, I don't honestly know if it is or isn't, and it could be because nobody wants you to really know. Uh, but I've also had experiences. Sorry, lost my train of thought here. I've had experiences where people that I know that know me personally in
hmm
my dojo, and that know I have a YouTube channel and watched the video about a sword that I didn't like, went out and bought it anyway. Right. So
mm.
there's definitely been times where people, I've said like, I don't really like this thing. And then people will tune in to tell me about how they do like it and how they
It
bought
just
one
like
anyway.
puts it on their map, kind of.
Yeah. So I
Yeah,
don't know if like any press is good press, even if it like goes poorly, is untrue. I don't know if I could say anything to like sink a company because
hmm
like the chances are just getting the name on people's radar probably does more good than harm, I would
that's
guess.
true.
But
I will say, just on the record, I've heard that Dark Sword Armory does make very nice swords. I did happen to buy a movie replica, so it had to fit the movie replica's shape and size and be made of probably different materials that it was meant to be made of. So because of the weight or how unwieldy it is not really their fault. So if they were to build just a regular sword that's just like a pretty normal sword or other swords they have, I'm sure are much nicer. I did buy like the second most weird sword they had. So
I don't know. I think generally Dark Sword Armory makes beefier
they do make weird
swords.
swords, yeah.
I Yeah, I mean there's some that are in the like kind of functional fantasy realm of
Yeah,
things,
that seems like the
and
main
yeah, and I
deal.
don't I think that it like if it strikes a chord with you, you could do a lot worse. I was just at Blade Show. There's a lot of functional fantasy things out there that are going for thousands of dollars and not hundreds of dollars. So, and also seemed overbuilt and had flaws and, you know, a number of other imperfections that you might see in a Darksword Armory piece. But they do tend to lean on the stouter side rather than on the leaner ones, and that's been pretty consistent with most of the swords that I've had, which is unfortunate. Like there are some that are not bad. The Baron, I want to say, was given its profile, like actually kind of a fun feeling sword. I don't think you'd mind it. Didn't cut well though, but like you could you could bash things really hard with it, and it felt reasonable.
It seems like what they're good at is bashing things really hard.
Yeah, I think their designs could just be tweaked a little bit and probably really do well. The Messer was one that I thought was really kind of a shame because they had this different take on a Messer than a lot of other people do.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look like just the same thing that's out there. And the blade just needs to be ground a bit differently, and the hilt kind of tweaked a little bit. And I think it'd be really compelling and fun, but it happens to be very, very hefty to move around.
Yeah,
so.
It seems like there's a lot of just like material that needs to be removed. And like a little more refinement would help a lot, but what do I know? I'm just some fucking guy.
Some guy on the internet that talks about swords.
How was Blade Show?
It was
This is your first time going, right?
Yeah.
Okay, how was it?
First time at Blade Show. It was absolutely worth going. And so if I ever get a chance to go again, because I don't know that it'll be a yearly event for me, but if I do get to go again, I would definitely stay at the hotel and not closer. Like I stayed in a place that was not far away from the convention center, because I think it was like parking was easier, and it was just easier to like get to some of the other places in Atlanta that I wanted to go rather than try to leave the convention center every day or the hotel there. But at night, a lot of people seem to gather in the little lobby area of the hotel.
Yeah, lobby con.
Yeah, you can have extend the show and your conversations with people a little bit more while they're not trying to guard all their stuff at the booth. So that is something that I missed out on. And also I didn't stay the whole time. I was talking to my wife and I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to talk to people for 3 days straight about swords. And she was like, yes, you will. No family, left to your own devices. You'll be there at 9 a.m. You'll work till 6 p.m. Then you'll talk about swords all night. You don't even need to break for the bathroom mat. You will do it all day long without issue. And she was right. I absolutely could have talked a lot more. I was there for like about one full day. I got like a half a day on Friday and Saturday. And I absolutely could have spent the time doing 3 full days, even though it's mainly focused on knives. There's still like enough swords there and people that make swords that you can spend a fair amount of time, and people seem really generous with their time as well. I walking around being a tire kicker, there'd be a sword that was sold and I could pick it up and the people would tell me about some of the techniques they used to do it. And some of them are just people relentlessly pursuing perfection. And so that, I was going to have to make a video about it, but there were 2 things that really stood out to me about Blade Show. And one was that knife makers make big knives and sword makers make baby swords. And 2, that Blade Show will make you numb to knife beauty, and only like God tier stuff stands out.
Yeah, and so the sea of knives, it must be.
Yeah, like you can throw a rock and hit the most beautiful buoy you've ever seen 100 times before it lands, right?
Yeah.
And so any of these like knives that would be the gem of any collection just kind of blend into the minutia at Blade Show, right? And there's a lot of stuff. There's people that are really interested in, XYZ kind of production-y knife. And there's a lot of those in colors. And then there's like really masterful, amazing works of art. And as I'm walking around the tables though, like what would normally pull my eye at any given time just kind of blends in. And it reminded me of walking around Iceland the first time, or driving through Iceland, where I'm from a place where waterfalls are pretty sparse. And so when you see them, they're very, very special. Yeah. And it's like this very pretty thing that you drive a ways to look at. But in Iceland, the largest waterfall in Minnesota is not even a drainage ditch in Iceland.
Yeah, I bet.
So you're driving around and you just kind of get numb to the prettiest thing you've ever seen. There's just like, oh, what is that? The sewer? Yeah, it's fucking gorgeous. It's a lovely waterfall. There's unicorns, whatever. And you move along and you keep driving, and it's only the ones that like are like awe-inspiring, like waterfalls that are enormous and
Yeah.
that really start to like make you go like, oh, like that's a big one. And it's like that at Blade Show, where you pass by all of these multi-$1,000 knives that are like, oh yeah, it's just another most beautiful Bowie I've ever seen in my life. And then you come up to these $40,000 god tier, immaculate, diamond encrusted, crazy works of art that are like, oh wow, like this was your whole life for a long
That's
time.
so interesting, especially since we're sword guys. I
Hmm.
mean, I'm sure you're like kind of into knives, but when you have so many, really nice, especially like Japanese like style katanas and stuff, like a knife is just like I have a ton of knives, but if I ever see a knife, like the knife would have to be so special for me to even care even a little bit. Like even a little bit, because I collect swords and I
Yeah.
like swords so much, and I'm like,
Well, that's the thing. They
like what
are.
if,
That's exactly what I'm saying. Is there
yeah,
are just like in a Japanese sword. I know you've looked at Suba before, and they tell a story, and there's a thing that resonates. And if you
yeah,
look at some of like the really intricate works of art in Japanese Suba in particular, with all the fine engraving and metalwork and laminating techniques and all of that, like it really is its own special kind of canvas.
hmm,
And there's a lot of people there that use those same skills with a different style of art. So there's a ton of engraving and gem setting and different laminations and glazing and like all of this stuff, but that is pushing the realm of what humans are capable of doing. You
yeah,
know, they're like little surgeons with their microscopes assembling these works of art. And so in those cases that really like it stops you and you know kind of gawk at this $50,000 knife for
oh
a minute.
yeah, something that's just like a freak
Yeah.
knife, just like
Yeah. But
no
there's
one should own that, or like it has no purpose other than just being just the most expensive, awesome thing. Yeah,
Yeah, there were a few of it's not that it didn't have a purpose, it just put so much more intent and art in the
yeah,
object than you would, but like I like to think I would have as much interest if it were a spatula that was bedazzled as it was. Like that's
yeah.
the craftsmanship and work that goes into it is just what makes it particularly special.
Hmm.
Um, and so I found that interesting. Like I think you uh, if you are a sword person, you probably have some appreciation for knives and the techniques and like things that make swords really beautifully intricately work. Sometimes are present on knives, and that was really fun for me to see.
Yeah. What percentage of, I mean, obviously there's more knives, but what percentage of the stuff there were swords?
Like less than 1%.
Wait, really? Damn. I
Yeah,
always felt it'd be like 15%.
I
That's
guess
that's the
this was a
inclination I
light
got.
year, so
Hmm.
like every 10th table, I want to say maybe had a sword on it, but that sword was
Just like a
like
wall hanger.
it's like the Dodge Viper in the parking, you know, in the showroom of the dealership, right? Like
Yeah.
you've got this one kind of thing that draws people's eyes, and then like 100 different kind of things of a lesser price on the table, and a lot of them were expensive. There were some that were really, really fun to look at. Vance Evans had like a Cinque Dia Schiavona kind of sword, and I don't remember if it won like the show or not. But anyway, like there were some very very pretty things that were there. Ron Chen was there, and so I got to see a sword, a katana that he had made.
Nice.
And then Hanwei was there, so I got to handle like a ton of different Dragon King models and
Yeah, I
other
saw their
things that I haven't gotten a
posts.
chance to hold on. So yeah, there were definitely some there, but that made it easier. Like if you go to if you go to a sword show, then like they're all swords, and it's really easy to get like lost and not have a lot of time. But because
I
there
guess
were
that's true.
so few of them, I get to spend a lot of time with them.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I've known about Blade Show for a really long time, and I'm like, oh, it's kind of that'd be on a list of things I might want to go to. But I was like, I really only care about the swords, so I was like, I have no clue how many. Oh, we got a little question here.
I'm bad at chat, so in advance, sorry. There have been questions and I've sucked at answering them, but this one was right in front of me. and it struck me because you might like to know this. So, Joe is asking, did you spend time with Patrick at the Cast Iberia? Did you see Frenchie? And so, yes, Joe, I did meet Patrick in person. He's the guy at Cast Iberia that I've been working with on samples, and he's been on the channel and live stream a few times. I did get to meet him in person, so that was very nice. Everyone
Nice.
that met me in person was like, "Oh, you're taller than I thought." So apparently, I give off like short guy vibes. But Frenchie is somebody you might want to put on your radar, Daniel. So I know you've mentioned some of the like the kami has been an art object that you kind of lusted after as a kid. And I
Yeah.
learned that Frenchie Jen of Dragon King, when he was working at Hanwei, largely was responsible for the Suba designs and like the designs of the swords.
Oh, hell
And
yeah.
so he had this book of all the Suba work that he has made, all the designs he's made. And it's basically like the whole catalog of Hanwei. And
That's
so
sick.
I didn't realize that this guy, like these iconic models that have stood out over time and just, kind of changed the sword
Yeah.
world a little bit, were largely like Frenchie's designs.
They're
And
legendary. Yeah. That's
yeah, seeing that book and meeting him in person and kind of learning a little bit more about that was really, really fulfilling. But anyway, his name's Frenchie Jin, and
he's the Dragon
he
King
does,
guy.
yeah, he's the Dragon King guy, but he's also like responsible for the designs that you
Hell
really
yeah.
love in those swords. So
That's awesome because the Subas on those swords really do guide the theme. I imagine
yeah,
that's probably where they start. Uh, like at least one of the first things they design. I don't know. I'd have to ask Frenchie, but I assume that's probably one of the first things they would design. But
yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah. I was like, oh, like you are the special sauce. Like
Yep.
you like all of when I think of the things that Hanwei really stands out as doing, they have a casting process that can bring out a lot more detail than a lot of people still, even
Hmm.
after doing it for 20 years, it's tough to find people that do it as well. And the designs they have are different and unique and cool uh, and really like honestly really well done for the most part between Hanwei and Dragon King.
Yeah.
And so like hearing that it was the one guy and like meeting the man behind it was I thought really fulfilling and interesting. I wish I had
Hell yeah.
thought more about it and like um yeah like done more as a creator to make content there, but I totally was just like, ooh, I want to touch stuff and play with it. I don't have time to fuddle with
Yeah, I'd
cameras.
imagine that'd be a real pain in the ass to make a video about Blade Show, because you kind of just want to. You don't want to be the annoying guy like asking to film everything and like that's just like there's just so
There's a
much shit
fair
going
number of them
on
there too. Like
and
there's a
everyone
lot of
hates them. Just kidding. Just,
yeah, I thought it was, so I don't get out a whole lot to places that are not cubicles and work and that kind of stuff. And so it's really rare for me to be in a spot where there's like somebody making content stuff.
mm,
And like being in a room with, it wasn't like a grotesque amount, but there were like a fair number of people walking around with like full body harnesses, like following a creator around. And it seemed
interesting.
like there were some people making content there, which is
I
fine.
I imagine a lot of those are like promotional stuff from the companies.
Maybe,
Probably. Yeah.
maybe it did seem like there were a few people making stuff, and I had a camera bag on me, like I had my camera on me the whole time, but I was just like, oh, I would rather talk and meet and
Yeah,
do
and
stuff. And I also then
hold a
didn't buy
sword or
anything,
knife. Yeah.
which was dumb. There were a lot of really good deals at Blade Show too. That's the other part, is if you go, there are really, really good deals there. The Cast Iberia booth had really amazing deals on
Really?
swords,
Damn.
and I was kind of tempted to be like, yeah, I'll just buy them all, but I
Yeah, but you're
didn't want to
also
have to do
like they'll probably just send them to me. It's like- that too probably helped a little bit.
I don't.
Uh,
I don't think they. I don't think they would send that many. But
send me all of these swords, or I'll buy
yeah,
them right now. It's one or the other. We got a
send them all.
question here.
Sure. Oh yeah.
Uh,
Who should I highlight? Joe.
Blakecraft says, "Who handles your behind the scenes productions? Very well done. Have you always believed in delivering a higher production value?" I do. Me and my girlfriend, we do everything. She shoots most of my stuff. But Yeah, I just have a production background, working in YouTube and doing film stuff. So I just kind of had the know-how and spent a lot of money on equipment, basically, and that's why it looks good. It's basically just the camera, the lens, and the lighting, and spent a lot of money on that. And it was kind of it was a learning process, but I wanted to make a video that was like a higher production level because most videos even back then was just like one camera, but nowadays everyone's got sliders, everyone's got lights and like sweet lenses and do slow mo and stuff. So yeah, it's cool. It's cool to see like production value of everyone's stuff going up. I've seen your stuff too. Your JS Bladecraft. You put some work into your videos.
Joe
So
does.
that's
He is
cool.
the
Yeah.
cinematographer by trade.
Yeah.
I
So
remember starting and filming on a potato. It's
what camera were you using?
I don't think it was a camera. I bought
It was an actual potato.
it was like it was a little red thing that I got on Woot for $50. Like I don't know if you remember the Woot site
What
Woot
is Woot?
Amazon. They used to be this site that would have like random shit. There'd be one thing for sale per day, and it would be there until until they sold it out, and then it would shift over the next day. And I
Weird.
don't think they operate that way, but every now and again you could get really good deals. So GoPros used to be like $400 at the time, and
Yeah.
cell phones did not film very well.
Hmm.
And so I got this like action camera that was this little red
Oh,
piece of
okay.
garbage looking thing that had a big fisheye lens on it and was awful. And then I had a webcam to like talk over stuff and
Yeah.
the webcam camera, and it was not a great mix for a very long time. And I think actually Joe
Oh,
might have inspired me to like buy proper microphones and stuff because he was like, "Hey, your camera work is watchable now, but like you sound like shit. Could
yep.
you please get a microphone to make this like watchable by humans?"
Yep. That was one of the best pieces of advice I ever got when I was first started doing YouTube videos. Is from my buddy Freddie Wong, actually, OG YouTube legend. And he was telling me, like way back in the day, he was like, people watch a video if the footage is bad and shitty, but if the sound is bad, it doesn't matter how good your video looks. It could look like a $10 million production. People will turn the video off. So I was like, oh damn, and it's so true, so true. If like I have friends who make other videos for they do make other kinds of content, and I'll watch their video and I'll just cringe because I'll be like, oh no, you spent all this money and time on this video and you're using like in-camera audio to do the intro, and like the first like 30 seconds of the video is just like echoey, unfiltered, just like raw camera audio, and then the rest of the video is like everyone has lavaliers on and it's like nice, and I'm like, oh my god, dude, you can't do that. Like that's but like, how do you say that? How do you tell your friend that? You're like,
Well, I would just say it. I'm pretty sure that my friends and I have very little in the way of like filter. We're definitely a like your dick's out kind of friend, you know?
yeah, I feel
Like
like
that was the worst thing I've
I
ever
have
heard.
said it to them, like to some friends and stuff, and then I watch like a future video to hope they changed it, and they don't change it, and I'm just like, okay, I can't say it again. Like if I say it again, that's that. You can definitely
Just
say it once. You can say it one time.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a very like um I find that some of the Japanese martial arts work that way, where they're like, we'll tell you one time, and then if you keep fucking up like 5-10 years, maybe you'll eventually figure it out. Like, why does everyone else move differently? Because you suck, and we told you once 10 years ago, but you're really slow and dumb, so it's taking you this long to pick it up.
Yeah. Hold on,
That's-
we got some misinformation in the chat over here. We got some people
Uh-oh.
dropping some lies. The
Uh-oh.
average tang in a katana or Japanese tachi from Japan is only 2 inches. And the hilt is very generic fiberglass. I don't think they had fiberglass back in feudal times.
Where is the God? I suck at chat so
It's the
much.
most recent one by Soycan.
Okay, the
Two
average
inches is a very That's like a
Only 2 inches.
damn. Sucks for them.
There we go.
That's
What's
like
that?
yeah. That's like this.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Uh,
Wow. Crazy. Crazy. Love to see a
great.
source on that. So
Yeah.
this happens a lot in my YouTube comments where people just like make things up. I don't know. Like they're like my brother's friend told me this, and so this is what I'm gonna say in the comments, and like this is for sure true because my brother's friend wouldn't lie to me.
Yeah.
So I get that a lot. So it's interesting.
Yeah. I would also agree that this does seem to be inaccurate, or at least
Or
the
it's
top few that I've
troll. I don't
seen.
know.
Or it's like super true and like you just don't know. Like we
we
only have
are
that long tang here in the
yeah
US.
yeah
All the
yeah
collections we have.
yeah.
You go to Japan, look
Yeah.
at like the numbers, and
Look at the
it's all
numbers.
2 inch
Fucking
tang
two
over there.
inches, dude. Damn.
Yeah,
That sucks.
fiberglass. I don't like. There's some historic analogy an analogous material for fiberglass? I don't think so. But otherwise, yeah, I don't think that's the case. Straight up lies.
He
Oh,
apologized immediately though, so that's good. Yeah, that's fine. Apology accepted. That's fine.
accepted. There we go.
Yeah.
He has
Let's
a
see.
sword. It cuts. It doesn't bend within reason, but it still break. Tell me why he has a sword. It cuts. It doesn't bend within reason of alignment, but he still breaks a good sword. If that's the case, Tamahagane regarding still. I don't understand what you're trying to say, my guy.
Tamagane regarding still is ornamental S5I6. So
L6. There we go.
L6. There's a lot of commas in that comment.
Breaking my brain a little.
I think he's saying. I have to read it again. Okay, I think he's saying like Tamahagane, like what's the point when you can get L6 and like S5 steel? Tamahagane wasn't originally ornamental. Like the whole point was to get the impurities out of the steel, and that was like the most best way to do it. It was actually very extremely impressive. The fact that they're able to make swords that from what they had. And the ornamental thing is like it is beautiful, but that's just a byproduct. Yeah, I don't know what to say to that comment. We can move on. That's fine.
I would say that there's generally a difference in people that like ornamental stuff and people that want performance. And what I think breaks in people's brains a little bit when buying swords is that the most expensive stuff is probably one of the not as great performers, right?
Yeah.
So if you fold steel and make billets and stuff to at least address this comment, like if the spirit of the question was, why would anyone buy ornamental steel when there's superior stuff out there? It might be a tie to history. It might be that like you want to cut with something that is similar to the object that you're learning about or studying.
Yeah.
There's a
Or
lot of
just
reasons.
have character in your
Yeah.
blade, have it not just be like a
Yeah.
mono hardened, just a blank piece of steel that was stamped out of a sheet and then sharpened on a grinder. Like there are different things.
Why buy an old car that has a look you like over a new one that's just as fast and more efficient?
It's
Like,
true. It's also like
why do that? Well,
if you bought a real like Tamahagane katana, unless you're freaking smacking it against the croquet stick of doom, like it's gonna do fine. Like if you break that sword, that's probably on you for breaking that sword. There seems to be such a focus, especially in like the whole longsword versus katana agreement. It's like, oh well, this sword is like slightly more durable than this sword, so that means it is 100% better in every way. It's like, okay. I mean, durability is nice, that's for sure, especially if you're like in a pitched battlefield and you're like freaking smacking people with armor on. It's pretty important. But I don't know if it like completely negates the use of another sword just because it's slightly more durable. There's other factors involved with like how it handles, the way it looks, the artistic,
Yeah, that
things
argument
put into
taken
it.
to the extreme is like this hammer is the best fillet knife because when I beat rocks with it, it doesn't break.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, like,
You're like, this
but
hammer is better than this scalpel
yep,
because I can smash a rock with it and you can't smash a rock with a scalpel. It's like, okay, but like you can do surgery with a scalpel, but you can't do it with a hammer. They're like, doesn't matter. It's not as durable. Instantly more superior. You're like, okay,
sure,
I
sure.
guess. I mean, yeah, it's a weird thing, man. Sword
Do you
people
get
are
more of that
fucking
in
weird.
the? I don't notice a lot of that in the comment section. You mentioned a little bit of your comment section.
Well, it's because I did like a katana versus longsword video,
Hmm.
and I plan on doing more. But I did it, and people were up in arms. People were really upset. Like half the comments are like, longsword superior in every way. It's like, and the other half are, if anyone was using a longsword, they'd clearly be wearing full plate armor and chainmail, so katana would be useless, and they'd also be on a horse with a shield. And you're like, okay. I mean, I guess if your sword requires you to be in a full like tank's worth of armor to be superior, I guess, yeah, I guess then it's probably not, no sword is going to do well against that, I guess. So there's a lot of this like posturing and, oh, we're so much more superior than this, from a lot of people who like seem to be really invested in not feeling inferior. So there's a lot of that going on in those comments. Wait, I saw a
What's
comment.
the? Were there any dumb ones that really stuck out to you?
Um, there's all of them, man, all of them. There's so many, it's crazy. There's a lot of comments where people are just like, spears are superior. That is so these are useless, and you're like, that's like what? That's like going into a video that's comparing two different types of bicycles, like a mountain bike and like a BMX bike, and be like, oh, motorcycles are better. So why did you even make this video? And you're like, I mean, I guess motorcycles are technically better because like, but doesn't mean these don't have a use. you know, you're gonna carry a spear around everywhere you go. You're gonna
I'm
whip a
going.
spear out indoors and start fighting somebody. Like, a lot of things like that. There were a lot of comments saying that the sword I was using wasn't a long sword; that it was an arming sword, which is funny. They're like, oh, it's an arming sword because it doesn't have an extra long handle. And you're like, this, it would be the hugest arming sword ever. Oh wait, here we go.
Yes, I think I have it up. I'm just sharing the wrong thing. I will learn how to use software better. The sad truth. Here we go. This is your.
This is my yeah. This is, and I try to be as non-biased as possible. I think what really rubbed people the wrong way is that, because I'm an Asian guy, and at the end of the video, I'm like, hey, you know what? Both swords have their place. Both swords have their strengths and weaknesses. The long sword is more durable, but the katana is faster, both on the draw and like striking. Katana is generally sharper and has like a lot of like beautiful artistic elements to it that the longsword doesn't really have. So they all have their time and place, and like we should respect cultures, even if they're not our culture. People did not like that. People were really mad about that. Just being like, how dare you? Like, you don't know anything. This longsword is clearly would beat anybody who has a katana. The katana would shatter on impact with any longsword. A lot of those comments, and a lot of comments regarding armor. Like my follow-up video, I'm gonna address all these things, but a big thing was armor, where they're like, this katana would be useless against armor, like knight armor, which it would clearly, but yeah, I don't think longsword would do much better against samurai armor. Like a lot of people seem to think samurai armor is made of just like wood and leather, but it's not. It's also made of chainmail and plate armor. It's not as thick or as durable, but it is much more maneuverable. So it's like there's so much. Who knows? We'll never know. You know, we'll never have like a guy in full knight armor and a guy in full samurai armor kill each other. It'd be fucking cool to watch though. Could you imagine if we were able to do that? That would be maybe one
Yeah,
day.
I don't know. I don't. That would be different.
Just get a bunch
That
of
would be
clones
different.
of the same person and you just run 5 tests and see, and
Yeah,
then we'll know for sure.
then we'll definitively know. We'll change out the sword.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Everything will be the exact same armor sword. Just do 5 tests and whoever wins the most.
yeah,
It'd be
I'm not
quite
sure.
interesting.
I'm not sure. I found both sets of armor to be, if done properly, very mobile and agile.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like they're an order of magnitude different in weight, and that they're very different in maneuver. Like either way, you kind of have restricted shoulder mobility.
Yeah.
You have some neck mobility. The samurai armor can breathe a little bit better, but you leave some stuff exposed.
Yeah,
I
there's
don't
more
know.
exposed parts, but I would feel like it'd be lighter just because there's way less like thick chainmail like on all parts of your body. Just like overall, I'm curious what the overall weight difference would be. But who knows? Either way, both those swords would suck against their armor. Like they would just
Yeah, the longsword would have more opportunity though.
yes,
So
just there's like less
I guess it
chainmail
depends, right?
parts.
Armor evolved quite a bit in Europe. So if you're talking about like, I don't know, 13th century warfare,
Yeah.
I don't know how much different that would play than like the 1700s or something like that.
Yeah.
So the armor obviously evolved quite a bit in that period of time, but
Yeah. I mean, the European armor is you're like a tank. It's just like every inch of your body is covered, which is yeah.
And I can't
No
think of-
sword
I've
would
tried to
do
cut through
well
armor.
against that.
I've tried to cut through armor made of like modern sheet metal, which is probably maybe thicker than some of the thinnest spots on armor historically, but
Mhm.
on average, it's not tempered and it's probably not as thick as
Yeah.
historical armor would be in its more reinforced locations. Really hard to cut through.
Yeah.
Even that hard to stab through. So I don't think I think it would be harder for the samurai to damage the knight.
It'd be like impossible. Yeah. He would have to
Knight has like a lot
pierce
of
through
things
his
that they
eye
can
slit.
poke. Yeah.
Yeah.
The knight has a few more obstacles, less obstacles to get through,
Yeah.
and I think a better tool to do that, right?
sure,
I mean, you have you know, like your hands are generally like almost completely covered, and a knight's blade could conceivably, you know, poke through some of the silky spots on Japanese armor.
Like a knight versus samurai, if they went 5 times at it, and they were roughly the same skill swordsman, the
I don't
knight
know.
would win probably.
I think place
4 out
might
of 5.
also matter though. I guess I don't know. Like I don't know enough historically to know about like so Japan is pretty toasty at times. It's humid and
Yeah.
hot. I don't know how well like knight armor would work in that environment. Like, do you need to breathe or do you
You'd
overheat?
probably die of heat stroke. Yeah. In the middle
So
of the summer.
I don't know. Is it nice knight versus samurai on home territory?
In like a sound stage.
Yeah, or is it just like the boxing ring? Are we meeting in the octagon? I think that might also.
I think it would be octagon, but you're right
Yeah.
because the armor would be like, I mean, you need like 2 other dudes with you even to just like, exist.
There were
as a
like
knight.
knights in the Crusades in other hot, but they were arid places. I don't know.
Yeah, but they mostly wore just chainmail.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think they
This
had
is where
they had
being a
like
dunce in history class is not particularly helpful. I'm not sure.
we got a question here. Oh, we got sinister swords and it says spears are lame compared to bows. Bows are lame compared to some guns are lame compared to tanks. Yeah, that's true. Because people would be like, oh, it's like spears are clearly better than swords. And then someone would be like, why wouldn't you just use a bow? Bows are better than everything. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason they all exist, you know? There's a reason they're all used.
They're just not as fun to talk about.
Yeah, I guess.
Why is that? Why is it that sword, like to you, what's
To
so
me,
alluring about swords in compare? Because
swords
like
to
they're not the most
me,
effective. You know that.
no, I'm not. I'm not. I have guns for that. I don't need to
Yeah.
worry about what's the most effective weapon. I love swords because when I was a child, uh, the sword was like the symbol of like heroism, symbol of like honor, facing another human being just with a freaking piece of steel, and you both have a piece of steel, and just the best swordsman wins. Not about like, that was the pinnacle of like skill to me. Like, I guess like hand to hand fighting is like part of it. Like that's probably more, but at the same time, like if someone's just like naturally bigger and stronger than you, it's not really fair. A sword is like a nice middle ground for that, where like even if you aren't the biggest strongest dude around, if you were a very skilled swordsman like back then, you could you would do really well. And
Yeah.
there's just something
But
about that,
why
like
why is
spears.
that force equalizer
Yes,
more appealing than the mace, than the bow, than the gun,
yes,
than the
yes. I
like
love
there's
the bow. I do archery as well. They all have their place, but there's something like, when it comes to guns and bows, even spears, just like trying to keep your range and like do that, there's a bit of honor lost there, I believe. Especially for, I mean, like on a one-on-one duel. Obviously, spears and bows are like necessary for like pitched battles, but we're talking one-on-one duels, like Highlander style, like in a parking garage with trench coats on. Like that's the kind of shit I'm into, Like that's fucking cool to me. And that's why I love swords. And that's why when someone's like, "Oh, spear is better," I'm like, "Just shut up!" Like I don't.
imagine the Highlander, they break out like the spear and they're like, okay,
If
I'm
someone
gonna
busts out a spear in Highlander, I'm done.
like
They're
we're
making a
gonna
new
do
Highlander
among
movie.
I heard.
Yeah, it's Henry Cavill is gonna do it, which is
He's
interesting.
he's become the king nerd, right? Like
He's
he's
the
become
king
the
nerd.
he's
He's also pretty well versed in swords at this point, so it's like
yeah.
hell yeah,
Well, I'm not saying it's not deserved. I'm
yeah,
just like
yeah,
I'm not sure when they declared him our king, but like I have no complaints.
yeah. I think it's when he built a gaming PC on live stream. I think that's when it happened. But that'll be great for all of us. The katana stock's gonna go way up when that movie comes out, because that was my like, I mean, obviously besides like Ninja Turtles and stuff, that was the movie that made me be like, oh shit, katanas are the best. Like, oh, I'm into katanas now, And I watched other shows that had katanas, like
None of the
ninja
best.
movies and stuff, but Highlander was just like such a big part of me getting into swords, specifically katanas. And I also, they had long swords and shit in there, but watching this white dude freaking whip around a katana and like it cut through other things, other swords, and just be like sick was big for me.
Yeah, it's folded a million times.
It's
It's like
folded 1 million times and can cut through anything.
yeah.
Well, what was the thing for you when you're little that like made you be like, oh, swords are my jam?
That's I honestly like I don't know if I could nail it down to a thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or like a
Well, it's like a
specific
bunch of
show.
stuff, I imagine, but like
Yeah,
something that stands
but
out to you.
swords. The first toy that I remember playing with is like a toy car, right? So that's the first toy that I recall playing with, and I'm a bit of a pack rat, so I still have my favorite cars from when I was 2 years old, right?
Oh,
Like I
damn.
remember like holding on, like some of my earliest memories are these toys, uh, and then like the immediate toy after that was like toy swords, wooden stick like sticks
Yep.
that looked like swords, or
Mm-hmm.
and then the first like steel sword I got, not that it was particularly razor sharp, but I got when I was around 5, and so
You got a
someone's like,
steel
let's get
sword when you were 5?
yeah.
Whoa,
Times were different back then, Man needed
that's
to defend his
crazy.
family. I'm just aging really well. I'm 170 years old.
Damn,
No,
you look great, dude. That's
thanks,
crazy.
buddy.
Uh,
It's really the absence of sun that if you stay in a basement and talk about swords all day, you too can live forever.
Damn.
Um,
So like
but
like your parents bought it for you?
no, an uncle gave it to me, and my parents didn't take it away. Would be the best way to describe it.
That's
Yeah,
almost the same. It's almost the same thing. Like that's
yeah.
almost the
Oh,
same.
I mean that's basically the same thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Wow.
then the
Okay.
collection
What
grew.
style sword was it?
It was it was like a wall hangery kind of thing.
Yeah, like a
I
like
gave all of
katana.
my like garbage swords away. No, it was an arming sword. What would be not really not really any kind of sword, like a Toledo wall hangery replica of an arming sword with a round handle, and the tang. It wasn't like even a hidden tang. It was just that the like hilt was compressed onto the nub of the blade, and
Mm,
like one little thumbtack held it in.
yeah, yeah.
That was it was a steel sword. I thought it was awesome until I learned my ass from a hole in the ground,
It
in which
was
case
awesome,
no
probably
longer
for a
did. Yeah,
5-year-old.
right. Yeah. But I
That's
was
crazy.
totally 5 and had swords. Oddly though, like I started collecting swords from there, and I remember like now it's taboo, but like I remember I had a collection of swords, and in 3rd
Mhm.
grade I brought some of my sword collection into school for show and
Times
tell.
are way different back
Yeah,
then.
times are way different. Like I
Yeah,
had
yeah.
to ask if it was okay, and like they had to be in a box. But then like I remember talking about show and tell about classic military sabers that were in my collection. Like,
Damn, that's so
and
something.
that
That's
was that
so
was 3rd
tracks.
grade show and tell.
Damn, that's so much cooler than my 3rd grade show and tell. I don't even know. I don't even think I
Yeah.
did one. I didn't have anything to talk about. That's nuts. My first sword was in uh my first sword was in middle school. It was the first steel sword I ever had.
Still pretty early, but
Pretty early. It was I think it was 7th grade. It was a Paul Chen practical Generation 1 katana. Classic sword. Um yeah, I had to use a friend's credit card to buy it. My mom specifically was like, no guns, no swords, not until you're 18, because she knew I really wanted them. So I had to sneak them all, and I hid
okay.
it for a long time. And that sword treated me really well. I ended up breaking it, so katanas are not indestructible.
You learned that not
Learned
from a
that.
guy on YouTube.
No, I learned that through blood, sweat, and tears. Uh, yeah, that sword was great. It's my fave. But yeah, I
How
thought
did
that
you
was
break it?
pretty early.
That
How
seems
to
like
break
the
it?
story. Yeah. How did you break your practical?
Well, I used it for a while. I think I broke it after maybe a year of using it, and I was first learning, and I was trying to do like tamashikiri and stuff, but I didn't have tatami mats, so I'd be cutting branches and trees. So I'd give it a bad whack, and the sword would kind of bend a little bit, and I'd bend it back. You know, do that a bunch of times, and then I imagine all the bending back and forth really weakened it at a certain point. And I remember I was on a camping trip with a bunch of friends, and we all brought our swords,
That's one
as
does.
young boys do.
Yeah.
And we were drinking. We were drinking, and we were hanging out, and there was a tree, and I was like, I got this. The tree was probably that thick, like that
There we
thick,
go.
pretty pretty
Yeah.
thick tree for a katana, for a
Yeah.
middle schooler to cut into with a katana. And I remember I went ping, and then the blade went whoosh, and like stuck in the ground, and all my friends were like, "Oh!" And I was very sad, but it was cool because then I had a broken blade with like that much blade left, and it made me feel like I was like, this survived like a battle, and like it's
Yeah.
still kind of like a little
Rite of
knife.
passage. Yeah.
Yes, it's rite of passage. That was the first sword I ever bought, first sword I ever broke.
Somebody was asking you, because I'm awesome, what was your first sword, so that you inadvertently answered a chat question.
Oh hell yeah! You just whoop whoop. I saw another one. I remember Bladecraft was asking if I ever tested any super steels. Not really. I'm not super. I have a couple T10 swords. And like I haven't tested S5 or S6. They seem cool. I'm not really like a abusive guy with my swords, so I only cut tatami mats with them.
Have
That's
you
like
ever
the
shot a sword?
I have shot swords.
I know.
Oh, yeah. I've tested them on tatami mats and bullets. Is what the only two things I've tested swords on. So I think it's cool. I think durability is obviously really nice. I was maybe you might not break after a year of using it. But I abused the shit out of that practical katana. That was like, I'd like throw it into the ground, and like, my friends and I would like smack our swords against each other. Do not do that. Do not do that ever. You did not hear me say that you should do that.
Yeah. Shrapnel. You got to be careful. There's chunks that come off of them when you do that.
Yep.
They fly at your face.
One little, it's just gonna, yeah. It's very dangerous. So yeah, I haven't really tested them. They seem cool. If I wanted to like really just bang my sword on all kinds of things, I'm more into like the how well they handle. Like that's really all that matters to me the most, because like I'm just cutting tatami. My sword's not gonna break on tatami. As long as it doesn't break on tatami mats, it'll be fine. But edge retention is probably more important to me than durability, because sharpening katana is an absolute massive pain in the ass, to the point where I won't do it.
How much is too much for a sword for you?
To pay?
Like, yeah, like for you personally, it's the sword. It's the best of whatever you value in a sword.
It depends on what I'm getting, or the most I would pay for a sword is about $2,000.
And then you're like, that's the end. No more.
Well, at that price, I'm like, I would just buy guns. Like, at that price, like, it can only get so much better. And then also, it's like, once you start dipping into, like, the, $5,000-$6,000 swords, you're like, I could save a little more and get, like, a real Nihonto. Like, maybe. But, like, in terms of, even if I got a real Nihonto, like, I don't know. I don't know if I'd use it much. I think I would have to, but
I've been playing with that recently. I got a deal on a Shinsakudo that was actually my size and mounted up and like ready to use. So I've been as I go out and practice, I've been using like a really long Shinsakudo, but a mod like a Nihonto, a blade made in Japan by Japanese smiths, et cetera, et cetera. And there is something about the way it's mounted. It was a pretty expensive sword, and so it feels really good. But things like fit together, I don't know. Like there is something a little fun about like learning an old martial art and practicing with a sword made with the same kind of like techniques and materials as the people that were trying to learn the art 600 years ago. Like there's some kind of fun about that.
For sure. Like, have you cut with it?
No, I haven't cut anything with it yet, but I may well do. I might hang on to it for a while.
Yeah.
But I describe it as like shooting like camera work with film, right? Or like if you ever drive a really, really old car, or like just like doing something the old fashioned hard way, whipping cream by hand. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it would be awesome to do with Yai. Like, I have a Tazando Yaido, and it's basically, besides the blade, steel. And besides the blade, it's like it's straight up Nihonto, and it's incredible to wield. It's just like, it feels so good. The Suka is like, it really is night and day compared to any other sword I've ever held, and it's just for Yaido. So I can only imagine like a brand new like Japanese mounted Nihonto would be incredible to train with.
Would you ever buy one though? Would you pay the? Would you
if
pay
I
the
made a lot more money? Yes, I would.
Okay,
that would be my deal.
A couple more million subscribers.
I just need 10 million more subscribers, and I'll do it. I want to do a video where I go to Japan and kind of do the whole process of like a foreigner coming and buying a katana and like doing all that. So if anyone out there wants to sponsor that video, let me know. That'd be great.
I got a question for you here. What's your go-to spot for tatami mats?
Oh man, I used to buy my tatami mats from this dude in Orange County. He just like had a business that he ran out of his house, and I would buy them, and he had great quality mats for really good price. But he no longer does that, which makes me sad. So I've been buying my more recent mats just straight from Cult of Athena, actually. They're more expensive, but they're nice mats. They're fine. but it's a business expense. You know, it's whatever. What are you gonna do? I don't really go through them that much.
What are you gonna do? Yep.
Where do you get your mats?
I get them from the dojo. So
Okay.
the teacher Sensei Seth will make a like go and rent a truck and drive to New York or someplace with a port, and then like load up on a shipment that comes over and is distributed amongst dojos, and then I buy it from him to do that. So
That's awesome.
um, yeah, it's a real nice perk. At the same time, the ask is that like I do try to do cutting with them at the dojo instead of in my backyard. So I make an effort to be sure that I'm cutting in class. One, because it's very helpful for me personally to get instruction,
Yeah.
but also like everyone gets to watch your mistakes and hopefully learn from them. So I try not to take for granted that I have an inline on Japanese used tatami,
That's so
but they're all
sick.
like they're used mats too. So some of them are they're quite a bit harder to cut because they're used and because they were actual flooring, right? So they're
Yeah.
really really densely woven because they were furniture. They were like really expensive things at one point,
Yeah.
but it's like ripping the upholstery off your furniture, right? So when they redo the flooring, they still have like all the staples and stuff, but because it was actually meant to be used as tatami flooring, they're a pretty like dense fiber, and then they get soaked up with like foot oils and whatever else
Yeah.
is
I
on them.
also
So then they
imagine
soak up. Yeah.
how cold it is there when you soak them. You probably soak them outdoors or like in a garage or
Mhm.
something.
Yeah.
So I imagine they kind of get a little frosty.
Yeah, they can.
Yeah, at
You have to
certain
be a little
points.
cautious. So if I keep them in hot water, then it smells like
Feet.
yeah, it smells like asshole. Like
It
it
smells
smells
like
like
it smells like taint. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it's definitely got the like a ripe gooch smell. If you
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
uh
yeah.
so that's not ideal, but like if I can keep them in some place that's relatively warm, then when I bring them outside, depending on the temperature, I get a narrow window before they freeze. But I've
I
cut them
see.
in 20 below, and like it starts penetrating the frozenness quite quickly, even if you start with a pretty warm thing and like the center of them is, boiling water.
Whoa.
They freeze pretty quick.
That's
I
kind of
couldn't get
nice
through one
though.
mat before I was like starting to like break off ice crystals.
Oh, damn. That's so crazy how yeah, we don't have to worry about that here in California.
No, you have to
That's
worry about
nuts.
it starting on fire if you go outside.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
not.
I can't go too far north. Risk losing all my mats. Yeah, mats are great. I dreamed about cutting saw mats when I was a little kid, and it's nice to be able to like actually do it. Um, Very expensive though.
Yes.
Oh, we got some questions
Question for you,
here.
Matt. You often talk about a sword being your size. Is there a rule of thumb, like if you're 5'9", but a katana by a 26-inch katana, or is it subjective? Uh, for me personally, it is a subjective thing, but I
Hmm.
study martial arts, so neither school that I'm in has a dedicated you have to buy a sword this size, but some do. So if you're in a school that has like a thing, then you should adhere to that. Both Kenjutsu styles that I study are pretty open to what you want to use. I find that if a sword is under 29 and a half inches in terms of nagesa, just the blade without habaki, then I don't have to move my hips. So my arm can draw the sword and then I can do dumb things. And I don't build like good technique and habits because I can cheat. And so I find out that I am cheating when I put a longer sword on and realize, oh, I'm just routinely not moving my hips. And like I should be. I thought I was, but because I've been training with a short thing where I just don't have to, for some reason I just stopped doing it and was not aware of that. So I find that the techniques that I'm studying often require sayabiki, and I should have to move my hips in order to draw the sword,
Yeah.
and I don't. And so that length for me is what when I say a sword my size, at least at the moment, what I mean by that. A 31-inch blade, I won't hit the ground if I'm just holding it. I will if I, like really squat down. It's not that I couldn't hit the floor, but just standing, I normally won't. And then I have to use uh, proper form to draw and sheathe the sword and not look like an asshole. What about
31's
you, D?
pretty long.
Yeah.
So RVA saying they got the hookup on mats. That's a lot of mats. I don't even know where I'd put that many mats. How much is like one bundle? Can I get like the one bundle? But that seems like a pretty good deal.
RVH multitasking, chiming up to Tommy. John is always doing 6 jobs at once. Are you writing a book right now? Are you selling swords? Are you like acupuncturing a client right now while you're texting on the other? Like you've got too many jobs, my friend. We have 5 bundles that make 21 to 22 rolls each, shipped sea freight to your address, 850 for 20 rolls.
No, 21 each, so times 5.
Uh,
So it's like 110 mats.
yeah,
That's a lot of mats, dude. What
yeah.
about what about one bundle? Can I buy one bundle? Can I buy a bundle at a time? Because I just have a
One bundle
limited amount
launched from a cannon directly at your windows.
directly through my window. Yeah, I don't have a lot of storage space. Um, I gotta check the quality of these mats. I gotta test them out first. See how much taint they smell like. Yeah, I actually there was a question I saw earlier. Someone was asking about. They're like, "What's the best, most durable sword for a certain price?" I think it was Outlander Systems kept asking about the most durable sword. I have a question to your question. Uh, why do you need the most durable sword? I want to know what you're using this sword for, like what you're doing to this poor sword that it would need to be super steel. I'm just curious.
Is this the
Because
question that I asked, or somebody else asked?
someone asked this in the comments a while ago, and there were like other people replied. They're like, oh, S6 and stuff like that. But I'm just curious.
Right. I suck at sorting. I mean, chat.
Oh, it
Well,
wasn't me, but oh, it was someone with a yellow symbol. Oh, I had Borderland Peppers asked. But my 9260 broke on a brick. Well, probably shouldn't hit your sword on a brick, but I mean, it's your sword, I guess.
chopping bricks with swords can be really fun. That
Yeah. Uh,
that's I think a fair point, because what at least when I do a video, I feel like I really easily articulate why a through hardened blade is more durable. Right? You
yeah.
go
Oh,
to a
by the way,
showcase
your most
table,
recent videos was cool. I liked seeing it, all that, and like the difference. I've been wanting to know that, but the through hardened stuff is it's cool to like have a full tested video. So that was sweet.
yeah, at least in so much as that was testing. But the
Hmm.
but the like it's kind of easy to see that that hey, when you go beat a metal stake, like it's a significant amount of abuse that it can take on some of those objects that would develop cracks, right?
Yeah.
So if you're going to be hitting something that could potentially crack the metal, the through hardened varieties are a lot less susceptible to that, and that can lead to far less catastrophic failure, because the likelihood that you crack the sword as you increase in the level of stupidity, for lack of a better word, is pretty high.
Yeah.
um, but what doesn't translate on video so well is like, what is edge retention worth, right? And so,
Yes.
like, do you get hundreds more mats, thousands more cuts? Like, what is the? It's kind of hard to validate and test that. Um, and also, like, when I make a video, it becomes this path of escalation that like the durability like is or is not, and so it seems like things fall off prematurely. But I don't have an easy way of being like, hey, I'm going to cut 1,000 cuts with a sword. I'm going to
Yeah.
not try to like do it great, but I'm going to throw 1,000 cuts out there as a mediocre practitioner. Let's see like how it handles, because that's a lot more likely scenario than somebody going and whacking a tree with their sword. But
Yeah.
I can't do that as
So expensive.
easily. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, besides doing the thumb test, there's not really like much you could do like to measure how sharp the blade still is. So like, yeah, I mean, edge retention, at least, I mean, to me, is more important than overall durability. I don't have many bricks breaking into my house trying to rob me. So, and if I did, I have guns for that. But yeah. So just edge retention, and for the most part, if it's, I mean, you found that the mono hardened blades or through hardened blades, the edge retention was
Not as
like
good. I
not as
mean,
good. Yeah, like it like was noticeably getting more dull. So it's like there's balance in everything, you know? It's balance in all things.
the I suppose the difference, if I think of why would I want the most durable sword, there's a group of folks that just want, um, like they want a katana because they're cool,
Yes.
and then they want it to be the most durable for the end of days. Like if I need it, I
They're
want
the
to be
zombie
sure.
apocalypse.
Yeah,
Yeah, doomsday
but that's like
prepper.
if it can do that, then like it's gonna be okay for a burglar, or like the week the power grid goes down and we all devolve into animals, like whatever the case may be, it's gonna hold up for that. And if that's the case,
It's
and
good to
by
have one of those, yeah.
yeah, if in the case where you find yourself needing a sword and you have not trained at all with it, then I think getting the most durable one is probably good because you're going to swing at shit that you shouldn't swing at, and
True.
you're going to swing it in a way that is not helpful for the sword surviving.
True. I mean,
And the more durable it is, the better.
yeah, I mean, if I had bought a through hardened steel sword as my first sword, I'd probably still have it now. Uh, but yeah, that's true. I guess if you're first starting out, um, you would be ashamed to have a very beautiful blade and like break it. So I get that. And the through hardened swords are pretty cheap, so it's a
They
decent
can be.
option.
I
Yeah, like a
I
Ronin is
think if you
pretty
just
decent.
want something that's resilient, but that's what you're doing. So I think of a person like if you think you're equally as likely to use this in the zombie apocalypse, or like when they bring Knife or Death back and you're going to go into like the room full of china and have to smash all the dishes, right?
That show's wild.
Yeah.
That show's wild. I felt that the episode where they had the guy with the katana come in, I was like, oh no, this is so rough. This is gonna be so rough. And then everyone, all those HEMA guys are sitting at home, be like, see, I told you, thing is useless. Thing sucks, dude. Yeah.
Swords did not do a particularly good showing on
No,
that.
not at all. Turns out a very long, thin blade for chopping like logs, not great. Doesn't do well. It does great against like the fish targets, but we have a question here from Unsheathed Sword Reviews. Got a fellow
Oh,
sword reviewer over here.
yeah.
Question for both of you: if you had $1,000 to drop on a katana off the top of your head, what are you going to buy specifically just for cutting light targets in the backyard? I'll let you go first. You can go first. $1,000. You can get a lot for
Hmm.
$1,000.
Okay. Well, I'd honestly
Is it
probably
have to be under 1,000? Because there are some that are like 1,100 or 1,200.
yeah. So just for the sake of argument, say plus or minus 10%. I would probably lean into something from Shadow Dancer.
Mm-hmm.
They seem to do a really solid job with having Ito that is really tight and serviceable, and then they also have swords out of S5. But I feel like I could use one of their swords to have fun and do like cutting, like the
Mm-hmm.
Hirozakuri blade that they sent. It's a little lightsaber to cut with, but it also draws and sheathes and is really fun to practice with. And some of their folded steel stuff is also really immaculate and has lovely polishes and whatnot. So I think that in the $1,000 price range, they're really uh, very very compelling.
Nice. I would say I was looking up how much the sword is to make sure. um, I would say for $1,000 for a katana, I would probably do like a Zisei sword, like a
It's one of the most basic Zisei ones. Then
yeah. You could get a very basic like custom Zisei one for about 1,000. But they're for the price and like for what you get, they're not perfect. Like the scabbards are kind of thin. But the amount of work they put into them is like really, really nice, and the sukas are really, really high quality. really well made sukas, and especially if you get. I have a sword from them that's a custom one that's kind of around that price. It's a little more than that because I had them do some extra stuff, but uh, compared to any other sword I've really seen for $1,000, you get a lot of bang for your buck. And if you get one with like a nice bohie in it, they're super nimble, really really light, and perfect for light targets. The one I have is basically like a trick katana. It's like 4 different
Okay.
trick cuts. That's basically
Yeah.
what I got it for. It's like super intense bohie, really light, like short handle, really light suba, and yeah, it's the most well balanced sword I own. So, and the one I have is probably like 1,500, but that's because I had a bunch of extra shit done to it. But you could get one pretty similar for about 1,000.
There's some honorable mentions that I think would go in there if things were a little different. Because the question is, if I had $1,000, like what would I go and spend money on today?
Yeah,
And it seems like there's a few different sites that partner with Shadow Dancer as well, like Sword is, and I think they're working with Zsay. Hopefully they'll be easier to connect with, but it seems like people are ordering stuff from Shadow Dancer and Zsay and getting it. And in comparison, what I hear from like Huawei is that people order it, and some people seem to get it pretty quickly, but other people have waited a fair amount of time. The same thing seems to be true with Skydro, which also does a pretty good job. And either of those companies, I think, could be contenders or runner up for my $1,000.
that's
There are
true.
probably elements that I like more about Shadow Dancer, but maybe some that I would like more about Huawei or Skydro for the money as well. I think you could get a good sword, but I bet I would have, like, if I ordered one of them today, I believe I would also be happy with the Shadow Dancer one and probably have it in hand to use quicker than I would with some of the other people that do a good job in that $1,000 price point, which is,
Yeah, it also depends like how quickly do you want to be using it.
yeah.
Yeah, because this Zsay sword I got took almost a year. It took like 9 months to make, but I had them do like a bunch of special shit to it. Would you like to see it?
Yeah.
We haven't busted a
Whip it
sword
out,
out yet.
dude.
Let me whip it out. Hold on, I'll grab it.
The innuendos are rife. All right. I will try to find things.
Okay.
Oh, God, I suck at
I also
chess.
saw another comment on here that I think it's interesting. Family Man says, "I want to get my son a sword for his 18th B day. Budget friendly options, please. I want to cut mats with him." And I think that's adorable. Um, Depends on what your budget is, but for an 18-year-old, ooh, I don't know. 18-year-old, how much would you spend if you had an 18-year-old son, Matt? I mean, I can't ask you. You'd have a fucking closet full of them to just hand them. But like if you weren't Matt Jensen, what would you get your 18-year-old son to cut mats with you for their first sword? I imagine.
The first sword, like I think my default answer for first sword is the $50 Musashi katana, right?
That's
And I
yeah,
say that because um, it will help inform you and be like the best $50 that you spend.
yeah.
Because if you're like, hey, I cut a mat, like, okay, you had fun. Oh, it's hard and I don't really want to learn how. Cool. You saved yourself a lot more
Cool.
money.
You're not my
And you
son
can,
anymore.
yeah, and you can hang something on the wall and like
Yeah,
live
yeah.
live your life. Um, and likewise, if you're like, oh, this is really great, like I'm struggling here, I learned how to move it around, like I went and hit a tree and it broke, like all that shit is out of the way for $50, and you didn't really have to go all in, and then you'll have some idea of like, it was too short, it was too long, it was just right,
Yeah,
you'll because you can't try anything on. That's like,
that's
what
true.
kind of pants do you like to wear? And you've never fucking put pants on before. You're like,
Yeah, but I mean, if as like a B day present though,
yeah.
'cause you'd want it to be pretty special.
Well,
I
buy a
wouldn't I
$50
wouldn't spend
one
more
and
than
then
like
include a
300.
$1,000 gift card to wherever you want to buy the sword at.
That's
And
true.
then, be like, hey, here's your selection, but you got to figure out, like, you can pick the awesome one, but you gotta fucking like figure out if this is for you or not. Otherwise, this $1,000 could go towards car insurance or some other
Yeah,
thing that you're going to enjoy.
yeah. I would say for a first sword, um, 18-year-old. I mean, I'm gonna be. You know what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say probably like a Hanwei blade. You get a nice Hanwei blade that's like not that expensive. Maybe like a practical plus is pretty nice. You can get one of those for like $300. It looks nice. It's got a nice hamon, and it's gonna handle well. But it's not like gonna break the bank. I think that's pretty good. Anything less than I would say, anything less than like $200. I don't know. I generally would. Besides, like, I mean, like the Musashi, you can get one for like $100. And like you have some of those samples from, what is it? What the fuck is that? We were just talking about them. Shadow Dancer, I think. Yeah. That are like sub $200 swords. They're fine, but it's just like you don't want the Ito to fall apart.
Yeah.
If they actually really do want to train with the sword and they actually do like it, especially if it's like a gift, you're gonna want that thing to last. And like it's a memory, It's like my dad got this for me for my 18th birthday. It's fucking sick. I wish that happened to me. So yeah, something like a practical plus Hanwei sword would be nice gift. Any kid would be thrilled to have that.
Yeah, I think there's more right answers than wrong ones.
True.
In this particular case, like
really
anything,
any sword. If I was an 18-year-old kid, my dad bought me a sword, I'd be like, "You're the coolest dad ever."
Thank you.
Yeah.
I take back every mean thing I ever said about you.
Yeah. Let's see. They got a bunch of questions here.
You're so much better at chat.
I'm trying. It just they like the interactiveness of it. And cut through blades and parking garage. Okay, these guys are talking about katanas. Big surprise.
Which differentially hardened blade can take the most sets without breaking? You get on the subject of like metal fatigue and metallurgy, there's probably a scientific and well understood answer to that question. I don't happen to know, but I can tell you that every sword, once it bends, starts to bend a little bit easier. Differentially hardened blades in particular.
I learned that in middle school.
Yeah. I can't say from the T10, the 5160, the hands-on that I've had, that one has shown to be like, once it bends, more resilient in that way. But a lot of them, like the evolution blades, for example, when I was working on Sword Friend John's like $6,500 evolution blade video, I remember doing like a shot of him cutting, and the blade is like curved in an S shape through the tatami mat, and it's bent at what looks like 180-degree angles, and it is like sprung back into shape. So it had some like really crazy, hard, bad cuts, and still kind of, you wouldn't know it. I wouldn't know that it even did that if I didn't like get that image in like a really fast shutter speed photo. Yeah. But that like isn't bent, and so I imagine there are some that are less prone to bending, but I couldn't necessarily tell you what steals or what does that. It seems a little bit more.
Yeah, it seems like they all will kind of fail roughly around the same amount. Like that steel type, it has, like once you start abusing it or once it starts bending, it's just a matter of time, really.
Okay. All right, Vic. John, whichever one of you sons of bitches is over there typing this in. What is your policy on child face punching?
Oh, man. Depends on how much they deserve it. But generally I try to avoid it. I just generally avoid children, and for the most part,
okay,
except for on the internet.
You heard it here first. Comments. Wrap your D.
Yeah, it's I haven't done it before since I was a kid. Really. And I think I only did it one time too back then. That was my brother. Anyways, here's the katana. We're going to talk about this sword. We're talking about swords, and we bust one out.
There's some context there, D. I tell people that when I hand swords to children, I threaten to punch them in the face if they wave it around, and so that's my
that's my
answer. And so I asked the parent first, because people come over, they have kids, they're like, oh, can I touch a sword? And I say, like, if it's okay with your parents. And then the parents say, like, yeah, that's fine. Before I hand the sword to the child, I say, as soon as you have this, you're an adult. And if you wave this around or threaten me with it, I will man punch you in the face. And then the
Hell
parents
yeah.
look at me, and then I will man punch your father for,
Yeah.
not teaching you right. So like,
It'll just be
don't fuck around and find out.
that's like very good policy, honestly. Cause yeah, I don't know what I would say if someone like a little kid came over and was like, I want to play with your swords. I'd be like, I would just give them like a fake one or like a boken.
Yeah.
But if they wanted to hold a real one, that's
I'm
like,
like, yeah,
they're
it's
learning a
awesome.
life
Let's do
lesson
it.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, but
Yeah.
also, the same thing if somebody asked you for gun safety, you'd be like, listen, if you take the gun out of the holster and just wave it around and point at me, I'm going to punch you in the face. Like, don't fucking do that. It's not funny. It's not okay.
It's not
Yeah.
okay, and you're gonna find out how not okay it is if you do it.
Yeah.
That's
So I will man punch you in the face. And then nobody's tested the limits there. Nobody's ever,
that's good. You haven't had to do it yet.
no, everyone's
Yeah.
like, okay, like I know. And no one has also been like, oh, wait a minute. You might punch me if I try to stab you. Never mind. I don't trust myself enough. I'm like, don't.
Makes
What
sense.
is it? Yeah. Anyway, apparently I've been barred from working at a booth at a Renaissance festival. That when I made that announcement, somebody was like, I should not give you a job at a sword booth at a Ren Fest. Threatening every child.
It's
who
okay.
comes
Those
to the door.
swords are mostly dull anyways. They can swing around. Yeah. You're like I'm gonna stand back behind the table. So this is a sword I got. It's a custom Zisei blade that I had made to my specifications for a video I'm working on, or we'll start working on soon. I've had the sword for a while, so I feel bad. It's taken a really long time. Had other videos come up, but it's very nice. It's got this blue Ito wrapping and this kind of like wave motif going on, which is cool. I like it. Really thin suba, so it's like very, very, very light. And then the everything is kind of water themed. Really, really nice quality race skin. You see those nodules. It's kind of hard to see. But this blade is pretty slick. It's a Sanmai blade, so it's laminated. It's my first actual laminated blade. But let me
Break it apart and etch it.
Smash it, destroy it.
Prove it didn't happen. Yeah.
It's a little hard to see, but you can actually see where the steel separates. Let me turn this on. Manual focus. Okay. It's a little hard to see, but you can see right here a little more, that differential right here, like right there. You can
I'm gonna do no.
You can see like right here, that line inside the hamon, that's like where the laminated steel is. It gets pretty thin right here though. It gets real thin right there, but then really the top part is what matters. Very, very nice. It's got a nice little copper habaki, but the weight of this blade and the balance is really the best part of the sword. It is so maneuverable, and it's got this massive bohie. Like, this bohie's huge. Look how fat that bohie is. Very nice sword. Really, really nice. Can't wait to do some cutting with it. It's a shame you can't see the... oh, wait. You can kind of see it a little better right here. It's a shame you can't really see the lamination more. Okay, you can see it right there. That lamination is very nice. Super well polished blade. Really, really well done. Yeah, see that little like whoop, whoop, right there? That's the lamination on it. Pretty cool. Big fan of the sword. I have a couple things I don't like about it, but overall, if I was to get in a sword fight with somebody, that's probably the sword I would use.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, we've lost you. There we go.
So that one's cool. Swords are pretty cool.
Swords are pretty cool. I've only had one Z-Say example, and the one that I got to play with was really excellent. I think that they make very, very nice swords, and it's easy. The downside is that it's really easy to spend $1,000 with them,
Yeah.
really, really quickly.
It's expensive.
But yeah, there's some compelling options there.
Yeah, they do a really good job of like custom making the suka and everything, and like sanding it down so that like the panels aren't showing, and like these nice materials, and everything's like really, the diamonds are really nice. The diamonds are so clean.
Yeah,
Really clean, really
it strikes me as like a sword where,
tight.
so like all the things that I normally bitch about get checked, but then like it just doubles the price.
Yes,
You know?
everything costs a lot. Like to get the uh like the higher quality ray skin is like, I think it's like another like $60 or something like that, and then like getting the ito, like the higher quality ito wrapping and everything, like all of that adds up and adds like hundreds of dollars onto it. And like getting the sanmai type of style blade, like that was like, that alone was like almost $1,000. But you know, you kind of get what you pay for. You pay for a little bit extra through Zsay, but you know it's gonna be done well. So
Yeah.
if you got the money, it's cool. But yeah, I see what you mean. It is very
You've had
that
it
shit
for a
adds
minute and you
up.
feel bad.
Yeah.
You mentioned that. How long does it take you to go from getting a sample to making a video? Because I often feel bad about the time as well. So I'm curious
Oh,
what your turn was.
it depends, because sometimes like I'll order a sword knowing it's gonna take like at least 6 months. Like this sword took over 6 months, and I have another sword from Zsay that's coming that is gonna, you know, maybe take 9. So because it's like Tamagane and all that shit. So I usually plan them out ahead of time, but then by the time I do get the sword, I'll like have come up with like 2 other video ideas that I'm working on, and I'm like, I have to like get these done, and then that sword is now here, and then like a year passes, and I've made like 2 videos, and it's like, oh, shit, I got to get around to this. But it depends. The custom swords probably 6 months, 6 to 9 months, when I get the sword to actually being able to like use it in film. But then other swords, like I did, you know, I did a brand deal with like Mini Katana, and I did a video with like I'm doing a video with Swordas, and like they sent a bunch of swords, so I'll get those videos out pretty soon. So custom stuff a lot longer. I imagine you have like a huge backlog, because like not only are you buying swords, you're getting sent swords, and then you're having friends just send you their swords.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is all truthiness there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
it's a
and
lot.
yeah, the backlog gets pretty thick. It used to be like, hey, I need a month, and then it was like, I probably need like 90 days, and then it was like, I gotta specify 90 days per sword, right?
Yeah,
Because I want to give
because they
each an
send you a
individual
bunch.
attention. And now it's probably longer than that. But I'm also shifting it around a little bit, and I'm finding that, especially with like the last video that I did, that I don't have to do. There's some brands that I don't think I need to do that anymore, right?
For sure.
I don't know that making another JQ sword review specifically is going to really add too much more to the conversation.
Yeah,
It's possible they come out with something neat, something new, and if that's the case, I would absolutely be happy to make a video about it.
for sure.
But maybe using that, like those swords, to answer a different question, like what's better and how it applies to everything, and then specifically calling out the people that made it possible, might be a better use of swords than, you know, being particularly
Like an in-depth thing about a very specific sword,
yeah.
that's like $300 is like, yeah, it's like
Well, it's just to a point, right? So I've already done that like a couple times with Jakku, with
Yeah.
Ronin Katana, with Hanwei Blades, with Shadow Dancer, with Skyjiro. And like if I review just another like a reskinned model, for lack of a better word, right? It's not really adding a whole lot to the conversation. Somebody just as easily could watch a different video that I made 5 years ago, garner the
Yeah.
same information, and be just as primed as if they had watched it about the specific model. Um,
Yeah. It
so
would
by
serve.
contrast, like Shadow
Yeah.
Dancer sent me 8 swords recently, and they're all their Tyrannosaurus line, and they're all different blade shapes. So it's a really good chance for me to talk about like why would you want one of these over the other ones? Like what is the difference in the blade shape, and like does it impact you doing things with it? Like that's probably a better use of time to make the video. So I've shifted a little bit to try to cope, because otherwise 8 swords, when you make one review a week, like that's 2 months of work, like 2 months forever.
Yeah, I mean, and then they're all so similar.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm kind of in the similar situation where I'm like, I have all these swords and I can make videos about all these swords, but it's just like, what is special about that? Like why would people want to watch this? Besides people who are looking for a review of this exact one sword, which there's like 10 of those people in the world. So it's like, what does this add to the sword community in terms of like content and like knowledge, and like why is it interesting? Freaking Kratos over here dropping
Oh,
some
yeah.
some donos.
Great. Kratos threw some money and then threw some more. Thank you. Haven't seen all of your videos, but have you ever tested?
Asab 88.
Have, I haven't. I don't know what
What
that is.
is that? What is that? I haven't.
Ask a BB88. I don't know. I don't know what that is. I imagine it's a steel kind type. Maybe it's a vendor. It's unfortunate that I couldn't tell you.
Maybe it's a new type of drug. I don't know.
Yeah, it's
Outlander Systems is D personally responsible for the Kami Katana making a return? And the answer I like to think is yes. Um, I think there was one video online about the Kami Katana, and it was just like a video of some guy like recording a video of like his in his backyard, just like showing like shots of it, and that was from like 12 years ago, something like that. So, sure, I will take
you
credit
made
for
it
it.
happen.
I made it happen.
I did talk about Patrick.
One of my
I did
faves.
talk to Patrick Shipley about that, and he mentioned that they're bringing the Katami back, or
The
planning on it.
Katami,
The Katami
the
Kamehameha.
Katami Kamana. Yeah. Wait, they're actually bringing it back?
As I understand, that is something that may be happening.
What?
Yeah,
Could you tell Patrick to send me one if they make a new one?
I can certainly ask. I would be like, D requests
Be like,
Kami Katana.
first ask one question. Like, first question, why are you bringing this back?
And if
Second
the answer is
question,
D, he would like one inside of him.
yes, I would like
His
one
house.
inside of me, please. That'd be great. I would love to see a V2 Kami Katana. Incredible. Never thought I'd see the day. Wow. Freaking love my Kami Katana. It's
I don't. I've had so many of them, and I don't like. They're not
how
bad.
dare
but
you?
I just
I mean, half of the reason I like it is the nostalgia,
yes.
and then
That
also like that Saya is like really. That Saya, I mean, the handle wrapping is really awful. So hopefully in the V2 they like really do a good job with the Ito wrapping. But the Suba and the fittings and the Saya with like the little black parts. Hold on.
Mm-hmm. Go get that Tana. D's background is
I know
just like
you're
loose
tired
black
of looking at the
clear
Kami
and
Katana. I don't think I'll ever get tired of looking at it, but here's a little reason. Here's my TED talk on why the Kami Katana fucking rules. So right here, this part right here on the Saya, this like lacquered, kind of ribbed for your pleasure part.
Yeah.
Fucking love
Extra
this
rattan
stuff.
wrap. Yep.
Yes. Very few swords have this. Very, very, very few swords have this. Really, really, really nice. Overall, for a Hanwei sword especially, the scabbard, super, super nice. Look how thin this bitch is.
Mm-hmm.
It's very
Well shaped.
thin. Really well shaped. Matt's like, this thing sucks. uh, it's got a freaking... It's got a metal ornate cap, which is nice. Really
Mm-hmm.
nice. How many people do this? Look at the...
Very. I think Hanwei's the only one that comes up with their own stuff.
Yeah,
Like
it's the only
there are a
one.
few others that do that, but not
They're
like,
all like mass produced.
yeah.
Really nice. Sageo. In the sword, it draws like a dream. It has a metal cap right here, so you never have to worry about cutting through. It's got horn, and then it's got a piece of, I think it's brass. Yeah, it looks like brass, which is cool. Never seen that on a sword.
I find that actually Hanwei, this is the one oddity about Hanwei, is that when I look at kojiri that are metal, they're usually just like historically a ring, right?
Yeah.
So they're not Hanwei makes a kojiri like they make a fuchi, right?
Yes.
Where
Yeah.
it's got the hole, but it's got metal sides on it.
Mhm.
And the wood like pokes up through it, so you're not super likely to grind the edge on it. But usually that's like lacquered and painted as opposed to being metal, so you're less likely to poke it, and it also still offers protection. That's
Yeah.
kind of a Hanweiism.
Yeah. The wood is like all the way up to the edge,
Mm-hmm.
which is really nice. A little rough in there, not great, but appreciate the metal part, especially because when you resheath it, it makes a little dink, little kink, which is nice. And I mean, come on. Look at this blade. Matt's like, I have so many swords, I have so many blades, and then it's got the extra long Kasaki.
I feel nothing.
I feel nothing. The extra long Kasaki, really nice touch. Makes it feel real special, real different. Makes it feel real old for some reason. It's great. Fucking love this sword.
There are nuances to the shape that I like, but
Yes.
they're probably not the same things that you do. I think if I look back 20 years ago, right, and I look at that sword in comparison to what was available, which is a comment that I got from somebody that like this sword needs to be looked at as like a time capsule. I think absolutely, like it's special and different and deserves the accolades that it got. But today, I think it falls a little bit short on some of the polishing options on the sword. It doesn't,
Yes.
like if you look at what Shadow Dancer and whatnot put out there, the Ito as well.
The Ito's the big thing.
Yeah, it seems like the fittings are at a higher level than the blade, and ideally they're kind of walking the same line. And a lot of folks seem to make like really nice blades and mediocre fittings. I love the story. I love the fittings. I like the theme and the design, the red and the rib scabbard. But yeah. The other thing I like about the shape is that it is longer than a typical Hanwei katana. Sometimes they were like 30 inches long, so the kami could be a longer blade. It has a swell at the kasaki as well. So if you turn it around, like the kasaki, if you look at it, the kind of thin way wise, it like raises out and comes
like
back
a little
in.
spear tip almost.
Yeah, it makes a nice whooshy sound when you put it away, and so it doesn't fit the same mold as every other sword out there. Particularly a lot of them made in Longchuan, they have kind of a very similar profile, and the kami stands apart in being different. But it also feels like they just made like turned all the settings to yes. And 20 years ago, I thought that was awesome, but today I don't know if it like resonates the same way. I really wish they stepped up a little bit with like consistency and Ito and got that at the same level. Like the fittings don't need to change; those are have consistently been an edge that Hanwei and now Dragon King seem to really nail it on. But I'd love to see them polish a little better and change up the Ito so that it's a lot more consistent.
Especially for this price, yeah. So I mean, that's exciting if they are making another one, because I'm sure they have heard I mean, back then there weren't like YouTube videos reviewing their swords, but now there's so much content out there, and I'm pretty sure they know. And if they don't, you should talk to Patrick and be like, "Hey, so your swords are really cool. D loves them, but he wishes the
Okay.
Ito didn't look like someone was drunk when they wrapped it. Like in comparison, try not to bang these up too much, but in comparison."
Yeah.
The difference is pretty noticeable in consistency. Also, like the tightness is they're about the same. Hanwei just uses higher quality Ito wrapping, I noticed, and they're higher end swords than most swords do. Their Ito wrappings are really like high quality Japanese silk. But yeah, if they could just get that to look like Zisei quality in terms of the wrapping and like the consistency, and just a little better polish on the blade, it would be incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah, for $2,000, you could buy a lot of sword nowadays.
You can, and you're so if you're buying a $1,000 sword, I think it's pretty unlikely that you're going to spend $3,000 to get an evolution blade, right? Like that's
Yeah.
a really big step. But if you're already in at $2,000, you might do three, right? The stretches, it's still not nothing, but like if you have $2,000, you may well have three. But if you have one, it doesn't mean you may have to. A lot of people I think now can stretch to $1,000. What used to be like a $500 budget seems to be moving with inflation to like, all right, what can I get for $1,000? But yeah, when you're doing $2,000, you're in evolution blade territory. You're in the Citadel
Citadel
kind of
range,
territory. And I look at what Hanwei does, and you have Horimono, and you have like folded steel, and you have really elaborate fittings, and those are things that are, I don't think either one of those brands are going to give you for the same amount of money.
Yeah.
But you do have like really crisp, consistent edges and very tight Ito and like well fit stuff. And I think that that's more important. So
yeah, I mean, for $2,000, I would rather have a Citadel sword. Like I would rather get a Citadel katana than the Kami katana. Like if
somebody
you
in
had both.
chat is like, I will trade you my Lotus, my $2,000 Citadel sword, for your Hanwei Kami katana. Would you?
Right
Would you
now?
take them up?
No,
Yep.
just purely because of like nostalgic reasons. And also this was like my first sword video was about the Kami katana. So it's kind of like I have to keep it. I'm not gonna trade it. But if I was gonna buy a $2,000 sword today, I mean also because I already own a Kami katana, I wouldn't buy another Kami katana. But if they want to send me one, I would definitely take one for sure. I really want to get a Citadel sword. I've been trying to figure out a way to make a video using one so I could get one and not have to pay for it, but I don't really know what kind of video that could possibly be. But they look really nice. I've seen your videos on them. They just look really, really nice. I would love to have one. But I don't know. How do you feel about yours? I mean, you've probably had several.
Yeah, I have. I've had a few of them, and they are excellent swords. And so before evolution blades, I think they kind of rose to the cream of the crop.
Yeah.
But with evolution blades, I think they fall behind just a little bit. They still have some competitive or interesting aspects to them that are still laudable. So all their fittings, I think, are handmade. So their Fuchikashira and the Suba all kind of get hand ground. So they're simpler than what you would find on an evolution blade, but to me, in a more meaningful way, because somebody like filed them all out. They're all individual. There's a lot more handmadeness to them. So even if they're simpler, to me, that makes them a little bit more special. The Ito and how tight they are and how clean they are, I think is on par with evolution blades, and that like I feel like I could generally stand on a knot, and they're very, very good.
Yeah.
But the blade shape of evolution blades is a little bit, I think, varies a little bit more. One, but two is just like more accurate. I've seen custom made evolution blades that are more antique katana designs, and they do
Yeah,
that as well.
I
And
can
I've
see that.
seen dedicated lawn mowing blades, like competition cutters, that I cut with one just the other day that is, you know, so just so well put together for that
Yeah,
they as a practitioner tool, which used to be one of the main reasons I would recommend Citadel. Evolution Blade kind of took that mantle away. They've taken the crown as like best practitioner's tool.
interesting.
Citadel still does art pieces, but they're just really expensive for it. So um, I want to say the bamboo katana that I had, which is,
That's the
got
one I
a
want.
little, yeah, it's got a little bedazzlement on it. I still have that one. It's like almost $3,000. And would I
Yeah,
rather have that or an evolution blade? I'd probably rather have the evolution blade for training, for practice, for all of those things. Like the fitment is better.
interesting. Because I've looked at evolution. Maybe just the fact that evolution blades like doesn't take very good product photos. Like their product photo, I'm like looking at both right now, and like the I mean, Cass Iberia does the product photos for the Citadel swords, so it's
Mhm.
really nice, super high quality. And I guess I'm just like a sucker for that sort of thing, because like the look of these swords and like the quality of the photos they took and like how detailed they are, really nice looking. I love the I love how the Habaki like grooves in with the bohi
Yeah,
on the bamboo Citadel blade, and then it has like the kind of brushed strokes on it. Really beautiful sword. Yeah, if I was to buy a sword with my own money today, right now, it would say it would be that sword, because it is like a little cheaper than Evolution Blade. But I mean, and there are so many Evolution Blades. You're like, God damn! I'm on their website. There's just like an endless amount of them.
they're they're all individual though.
Yeah, so
But
they're all different and like,
yeah, but they kind
which
of
is
blend.
cool.
Which is funny because like I look at the evolution blades and there are individual projects that really kind of stand out, but it seems like there's more variety in the like 4 or 5 Citadel blades that are offered than there are in the catalog of blades that Evolution puts out.
Yeah,
At the same time, like if that's what practitioners want, and like most people kind of like want a sword that's going to blend in at the dojo, then it makes sense that that's why.
that's
I imagine
true.
nobody's asked them to make a My Little Pony katana yet. So
Not yet. Not yet. I've also noticed like there's not many of these evolution blades have bohies. Is there a reason for that?
I don't think it
For
seems like a lot of
practice, for
cutters
like
prefer
cutting?
not to have them. Um, and since I would speculate anyway that it
Interesting.
costs more money to have a bohi, and practitioners sometimes
Oh,
find them to not be super helpful in cutting, or think they do better without them.
sorry,
And
my
then
camera battery died. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna swap it. It's going rave mode right now.
it's a rave. All right, I'll pull you off for a second until he comes back. I forgot what I was talking about, but let me go in and see if I can find questions because I'm not going to tell you I'm bad at chat because you've heard it already. Save 20K and go to Zondo.
All right.
Feedback.
I knew that was
I
gonna
have the
happen.
same
This
problem
camera
with my camera.
is a battery hog.
I'd
Uh,
love it if you could use like an extra power mode on your camera while you're doing it as a webcam. It's
yeah, if it like
first
could
world
pull
problems.
some for from the HDMI or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a they make little adapters that you just like plug into the battery and then just like plug in your wall, but they're kind of finicky, and like if you like bump it slightly, it just like cuts the camera out. So I don't really use it. Yeah, I'm like I'm a real big bohi kind of guy. Like I'm all about it. I don't know about you, but I just I just kind of have to have a bohi on my sword if I like really. Oh, this one's crazy looking. Holy shit! I'm looking at some of their evolution blades, but I definitely prefer a bohi. What about you?
I like them for training. I can't say that I I find they improve or degrade my cutting. They seem to perform about the same with or without to me. I think a sword can feel good with or without.
Mm-hmm.
And so the main thing that I like them for is they tend to make it louder. And a lot of what I'm doing is drawing and sheathing a sword. And
Yeah.
people
Nice
tell me that
feedback.
like the swords without bohie, other people can hear them. Like I'm making noise, but I don't hear it under the sword. So the bohie tends to make things louder, and so does that like enhance the widened tip area.
Mm-hmm.
That also tends to make it a lot more likely to hear the hasuji, the wind sound moving through the air. I tend to like them aesthetically. I think they're really pretty, and I also like when sword vendors ask me if I want a custom one, I try to ask for some odd bohie, right?
Yeah.
Because that like historically, if you look at a variety of different blades, we see the same options offered on a number of blades, and they're certainly more common uh, on antique blades. But there's a lot of variety out there in terms of like extra ones that got thrown in. There'd be like three on this one and one like kind of riding up the side of that one. And a
Yeah.
lot of them might have been done to just remove flaws in the blade when it was made, and they're not
Mm.
really beauty marks. But uh, I like to kind of mix it up a little bit with bohie and ask sometimes even for different bohie on either side of the sword, or to like
Now you're getting
mix and
crazy
match
over
some of
here.
them. Yeah. I like to mix it up a little bit with the bohie.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, obviously, like it's louder, and I find it to be really helpful for training. Just like knowing you can tell instantly whether or not it was a bad like slice. But I mostly like even for cutting, I prefer the bowie just because it makes the blade feel more balanced. Like it's
Hmm.
not so tip heavy, because I find a lot of swords without bowies are just very blade heavy, which can help with cutting, but I don't really. Yeah, I feel like I feel way more comfortable when the blade feels lighter and the point of balance is like much lower on the blade. Uh,
That's a video for you. Do
yeah,
bohie make a difference?
do bohie make a difference? And yeah, yeah, I could do that. I'd be like, I need the Citadel katana to make this video about bohies. Get a Citadel katana and a freaking evolution blade and test them.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, you have to get one Citadel with and one without, and then one
that's true.
Evolution
Yeah,
blade
yeah.
with and
I'm gonna.
without.
It's for the video. I need
Yeah.
one of each.
You need $15,000 in swords to do this
Yes,
video. I mean, bare
this one
minimum.
video. Yeah, that'll get 100,000 views. Like, let's go. Um,
It's going to answer the question tens of people are wondering.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There's gonna be 10 people out there, and 10 of them are in this chat right now. That you could tell. Um, yeah, it just feels better, and I could cut more accurately and quickly with it. Because like there are swords that if you there are swords you can do a double cut with, and there are swords you can't do a double cut with. And I feel like I want a sword I can do a double cut with, and like on the same target, like the upward and then the downwards, or the upwards and then another upwards before it falls. I don't know what they call that. What do you call that? You would know the answer.
Mizugaish, I think, is what that cut is.
Okay. Yeah.
Up then down, or usually you cut down then up then
Go that
through
and
another
that.
one.
Yeah, like the one where
Yeah,
so,
effectively you're trying to cut a
and
target before it falls, right? So
yes,
you're
yes,
cutting
yes.
under it, knocks the target over, and you got to come back through before that target falls down.
Yeah, yeah. So I have swords without bohies, and I'm like, there's no chance. There's no chance I'd be able to do it with this sword.
Hmm.
But it's just they're just like so much. They're just so much heavier. Like the blade, there's just so much tip. Hey, I guess it's like good for like momentum for cutting through targets, but it's like this sword is so sharp. Like you don't really need
Yeah.
momentum to cut through the tatami, really. Like
I
it's
don't
so sharp.
I don't know that I notice a difference like up to around 4 pounds. It's not that it isn't easier with a lighter sword, but I don't find it to honestly be that much. I'm the slow part, it's not the sword. It's like my own ability to move my arms and body. rather
I
than
see.
the ability to move like an extra pound or whatever amount of weight like I'm generating.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. So I don't find bohe to make that big a difference. Geometry of the blade seems to play a little bit bigger part, and the distal taper. I haven't found that bohe. Uh, they often are on swords that are already light,
Yeah.
and so they add to that feeling. But if you for example, if you get a chance to collaborate with Shadow Dancer or Zise again, they offer a Hirozakuri geometry, and it is a little laser beam, and I'm sure they
Yeah.
can make it with or without a bohe. But I bet if you got one without a bohe, that it would probably feel more nimble than the
The
sword that you
regular
have right
sword
now.
with the
That's already
bohe.
very nimble, just
Yeah.
because that geometry is just like a wedge, and they put in a fair amount of distal taper
Oh
in the
yeah, that
blade
thing
as
would
well.
fly.
And so it feels like a twig kind of in your hand.
Whoa.
And so like it's very quick, but a lot of that has to do more with the geometry of the edge work than the bohe. And I want to say
Mhm.
John Andresen wrote a book, and there was something, I have it here somewhere.
IRL's right. I'm addicted to the bohe.
The whole library is going to tip over. Yes. Don't hit the microphone, Matt. Sorry. Analysis of the EI Katana. Sword friend John, he wrote this book. And
Whoa.
in here, I want to say that there's some data points that he gathers around items with bohe and without, and the various weight differences. And I don't know that it's as like profound as you might expect, but maybe I misinterpreted the book. But it doesn't seem like from the historical examples that with or without made like as much difference as you might think it would.
Yeah,
But
I
if it
just I
feels
just
better,
personally
then
prefer it just like it just balances the blade, um, like lowers the weight. I feel and like in terms of like wear on the blade,
yeah,
the balance would be, and it's just fight. I find maybe you're just like a lot stronger than I am, probably, but the the ability to like not have to fight against the sword to move it is like key for me because I'm not like cutting through armor or like doing any intense hacking. So it's all about just like how fast can I cut and like how accurately I can do it. And it's all I care about. That's all I care about in life. Is how fast and accurately I can cut.
fast and accurate. I could be. I don't. Yeah, I'm not. I don't find it makes. I find it makes a difference in that I can tell if I'm swinging it right, and then I tend to get better cuts because I can tell if I'm doing it right, and that
Yeah.
helps me get on target better faster. So I would say that I prefer them, but yeah, you're right in that. Like in theory, you're removing material from the end of the blade, like where that's going to push that point of balance more, and you're not likely removing it from the Nakago area.
Yeah.
So in you tend to lighten it out a little bit. It just doesn't. I haven't seen it necessarily be the deal breaky difference that I would hope it would be.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, well, I'm awesome at noticing things. Video idea: compare and contrast the common blade styles: Unokobe Zakuri, Shinobi Zakuri, etc. Also, you're both rad fellows.
Oh,
Thank you.
Will, you're in luck. You're in luck. Because Matt's got something cooking for you.
Yeah, I will tell you, Will, that was my goal. I've been on some vacation for the last week, and my goal with my vacation this week was to finish repairing a shed and make that video about the 8 different blade types. And I will tell you, Will, I accomplished neither one of those goals, nor am I close to either one. So I do have some idea what I want, and ideally, actually, I've asked for some help from fellow sword 2B folks out there to help me with some of the historical components, because I feel pretty confident in the blade styles being able to say visually, look at these things. Do you see where they're different? Like
Yeah.
square peg, square hole kind of thing. And I can say I'm doing Iaido, and here are nuances about how they draw, how they sheathe, where they might poke you and you might not expect it, or where you have to do things differently. but the historical side of why are they is full of kind of stuff that's really easy to say as fact that is not. Like I
Yeah.
always heard that Shobuzakuri blades were made to penetrate Mongol armor, but then somebody was like, "Yeah, no, they came around like way before, and not really, and probably and that's like a thing people say, but I don't know if it's true,
Yeah.
and I don't know at all. I have no idea. So I'm hoping that I can get some better ideas on like why things were, and then I can make maybe a better video about it. But that requires smarter people than me. However, I will make a video eventually that goes over the common blade types.
Yeah, those little facts is kind of why my videos also take a really long time. Also, I'm just like lazy. But
It takes a
yeah,
long time.
just like making sure you don't put something on the internet forever that you are being like, this is how it was and this is what it is and why it's that way. Because like even if you tell the truth and like you're right, you're gonna have like hundreds of comments saying you're wrong. So at the very least, you want to make sure you're right so that you don't have to worry about it because people will tell you you're wrong even when you're right.
Or you make it so wrong that there's nobody's listening anymore.
Yeah,
You know, it's like the reason that Shobuzakuri existed is because all the potato farmers had AIDS.
that's
And
why. And then you just turn comments off on your video. Yeah, yeah. That's what you got to do, man.
that's the trick. That's I tried that. I tried that a few times, and honestly, I've forgotten the videos that I put them in. Uh, God, what was it? Unsheathed Sword Reviews. Vic had mentioned he brought up something I put in a review from the Albion Svante, and it was like a lot of money. And apparently, I was talking to the sword like, "Why are you so much money?" And I went back and looked at it. I was like, "Oh, yeah, I remember."
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't remember all the things that I've said, but I think I talked to the sword. Well, I might have been inebriated and asked it if it sucked dicks or printed money, and so those are
Yeah. I
the
mean, then
burning
some people
questions.
will be like, swords can't suck your dick. I know
That was
because my
bad
brother's
attitude.
friend told me. Yeah. There's a lot of that going on. Um, this guy asked about steels, but RVA Katana's on it. We don't even have to answer questions. Uh,
John, are you simultaneously live streaming your own live stream right now while answering all the questions? And John can do too many things.
damn.
I envy this man's ability to multitask.
The best play style. It's true. If it's your favorite, it's objectively the best. That's how it works.
Why
Other
is the
Kubis
Hanwei
agree.
Bamboo Mat Katana the best sword in the world?
Oh
That
yeah,
is the question.
that's the question. Why is it the best in the world?
Yeah, the
It's
Hanwei
because
Bamboo
it's your
Mat. Why?
favorite.
That's the best.
It's
There's
because it's your
people that
favorite.
acknowledge it as the best and people that are wrong. That is the two things.
Yeah, I
When will I
really.
interview Paul Martin? I can I can ask him if he wants to talk to me, but
Who's
he'll
Paul
probably
Martin?
Paul Martin is an author and a Japanese sword connoisseur, and he connects people with. He's like the guy behind the Japanese sword. I think uh,
Mm,
is his like Facebook page and YouTube, and I know he like does a lot of work in translating and connecting people with various smiths in Japan. And I don't know if
nice.
he's a dealer himself, but he deals with a lot of bougie, swanky swords in Japan, and I think he lives there. And I know he did some translations for the Connoisseur's Guide to Japanese Sword, which rattled a few cages when it came out in the way back when.
Mm,
So yeah, very.
this is a
Uh,
real big katana guy.
he's a big katana guy. knows lots about Japanese swords,
Hell
and
yeah, that's cool.
I could be like, so what do you think about swords? Why are they?
And he'll be like, "Boy, do I have things to say."
It's a stupid question.
Yeah.
Uh,
So I think the fact that your favorite Hanwei sword is a bamboo mat katana and my favorite Hanwei sword is the Shinto katana says a lot about us. You can learn a
yeah,
lot about somebody based on their favorite Hanwei sword. Let me tell you. And the fact is that you don't care about Bohi and I do. That's one thing.
that's what that says.
That's what that thing says. One thing. The other thing it says is that I like really light swords and that you don't care. and you want a sword that will just fucking chop into stuff.
That's what it says.
That's what it
I
says.
don't care about bow heat or lightness, and I just want a sword that I can chop into stuff.
Chop into stuff. Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't care about any other nuances or facts whatsoever. That's what that says about me.
No,
Like there are two dimensions, and it's
yeah,
chopping into stuff. That's a yes for me.
yes.
Bow heat, and that's a I don't
That's
care
a
for me.
that's a middle. That's a maybe. Yeah, yeah.
What's funny is that the bamboo mat that I have, you might actually like. Well, you've had a bamboo mat. I don't know what you thought about it.
I have one actually. Thanks to you, I was able to.
It's swapped. They swapped
Yeah,
it.
they swapped it out. They sent me a brand new one. Uh, and they just asked for the old one back, and I was like, sure, sure. Yeah, thanks to you. So if you guys don't know, I made a video on the bamboo mat katana, Matt's favorite sword, notorious for not having a bohie, and I used it to cut a bunch of shit up, and I was like cutting metal, and I was cutting a bunch of mats with like rods in them, and in the video, I thought there was like a crimp in the blade because it ended up having like multiple crimps, like just like lines, and then Matt hit me up. He's like, "Hey, those look like cracks. You should be careful. You shouldn't cut with that sword anymore." And then I looked at it more closely after filming the video, and I was like, "Holy shit, you're right. These are little cracks. There's 3 little cracks in the edge." And he's like, "That doesn't look like that's normal. It seems the sword, because like you have experience with the blade. You're like that. Its sword seems like it should not crack based on the cutting you did in the video." So I hit up Hanway, and after I sent him a link to my video, and I guess probably because the video had views, I don't know, because every other email I sent them before, they never replied to me. They were like, "Sure, send it back." It was like one sentence they sent me. It was like, "Sure, send it back. What's the address?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." And that was it. And they sent me a brand new one, and I have it. It's great. It fucking rocks.
Awesome.
And that was like a full almost 2 years after I did that to the sword. They didn't ask for any proof of purchase or where I bought it from. They didn't ask for any receipts or anything. They're just like, "Here's the address. What's your address?" I was like, "Fuck, okay, cool."
Sweet. I wonder if they what they did with the old broken one. That'd be a fun one to.
Yeah, I wondered that too. Maybe they like just swapped it out for a new blade and resold it.
I would venture a guess not. So as I understand it, there's a like a rejects pile, and I don't think they want any. I don't think they would resell that because like there's a pretty significant safety risk there.
Oh no, I mean like completely replace the blade because the fittings are all still fine.
I would imagine not. But if something came back with a broken scabbard, maybe they could swap it out or fix this or that. I'm not sure. But yeah, that's I'm glad that you got it replaced. I remember.
I was not
remember
expecting.
when I thought, I was like, that looks like a crack. That's probably not good. You should.
Yeah, I was gonna use it for cutting too. You could have saved my girlfriend's life because she's usually like behind the camera, like in front of the target. She could be dead right now if it wasn't for you.
They might. It's a lot more likely that it would fly back at you. So yeah, especially with some of the really aggressive ones. It's like it hits in there, and I guess it could fly forward, but there's also a chance that it shings right back at your face, which may or may not have happened to me a couple times.
That's scary. Yeah.
Yeah, it's bagging not fun.
Yeah, that's why you wear the chainmail. So yeah, great customer service.
Yeah.
If you crack your sword, as long as you have it on camera, and the video got like a bunch of views, like they'll replace it. That's all you gotta do.
That's
it. Yeah.
That is all. That is all you have to do.
Yeah. Patrick's like shit. Yeah. Yeah. Yours looks really nice. The normal fittings and stuff on the bamboo is like pretty chunky.
Yeah.
Real chunky. Sword.
I found the more recent examples to be less appealing. Well, to me, they're lighter and I think would be more appealing to most people. And I think that the fittings, if the handle were profiled a little better, would probably be more alluring because it has a tendency to be a little bit more on the axe side than some other handles are. But the blade that I have is actually about 8 or 9 ounces heavier just in the bare blade than a typical one. So it's actually heavier than most of them, and for some reason is a blade that I dig. I know this one's my favorite, but that is maybe like 30% stubbornness, 30% sentimentality, and some other juju in there. I'm not exactly sure why, because like objectively, it's a sword that I probably bought for $200 or $300 used, and then spent a pile of money that I'll never get back on dolling it up.
I mean, that's a big part of it too. It's like it's got your custom touch
and
to it.
Nobody would ever, in the right mind, pay me for the amount of effort that has gone into that sword. But that that wasn't the point.
Yeah, that's not the point. That's everyone's favorite sword is generally probably not the best sword they own.
I don't know if the point still works out, because it's much harder to find people to do sword work than it used to be at at a higher level. So there are still people out there that do it, but it used to be like, hey, the question we had before of like, where can I get a sword that's worth its salt for $1,000, right? 10 years ago, it seemed like you had a lot fewer options that were promising that didn't require work. And a good option might be, if there's a blade you like the Hanwei Shinto, buy that and then have the handle redone. Have, put fittings on it that you like if you have a blade that you enjoy, because you could find the fittings at a price and stick it all together and still be less out of pocket than $1,000.
But what if you think that the Hanwei Shinto is perfection as it is?
Then I would ask you to open your eyes and look at the handle.
Wow, you can't tell an Asian guy to open his eyes, Matt? That's fucked up, dude. No, dude, the Hanwei Shinto's great. I mean, it's obviously that you could get a nicer handle, but for what you're paying, you
got all the gibberish on there, like the wonky Ito, and it can't.
No, the Ito's
in fairness, I
great.
did test all of the things at the booth while I was there for Cast Iberia. I picked up every katana in the booth, and I was pushing around the Ito, and they were all actually very tight. So it's probably fine.
My Shinto is actually like, it's not Zisei level in terms of like how the diamonds are like small, but it's very consistent, surprisingly, because like my bamboo mat, my kami, they look like a drunk person wrapped them, but the Shinto I have is,
if you get a chance to find
nice.
a 25th anniversary Shinto, those are a special sauce.
Yeah, those are the ones that the folded blades, right?
I don't think they were folded. They were HSW2, so the same kind of steel that the bamboo mat or the lion dog is made out of.
Okay,
but it has this kind of like more erratic, fiery looking hamon on it, with the shape of the Shinto, but the fittings were also like nickel plated or something. So it had this really like silver and black.
Yeah. I remember that. Those are very hard to find.
They are. They come up every now and again, and usually they're not cheap. But that was, I've always liked the Shinto. I've had a number of them, but the 25th anniversary is special. I also have original Shintos around. So the Shinto was one of like the first katana that Hanwei started making.
It was like the original,
like bronze cast stuff on it. And the blades used to have like different shapes, and some of them did not have bohei. Does that unmake the Shinto katana for you? If it's a Shinto without a bohei?
No, the Shinto's blade is so thin that even without a bohei, it would be very maneuverable. Man, the 25th anniversary is so cool. The silver,
right?
It's the silver everything. Yeah, I've seen this a long time ago, and I remember trying to find one. I was like, they don't exist. But
if I see one, I'll mention it. But they usually come up for about $1,000 somewhere in there. Is about where they range.
I need one of these in my life.
You do. You do.
Because the Shinto is always my favorite. Even before kami, because I was like, there's no way I can afford a kami. Even back then, I was like, there's no way I can afford a Shinto when I was like in high school. But out of all the swords, if I could just pick one, it would always been the Shinto. And
very solid sword. I really like the Shinto. I always thought it was like, it's always one that made you smile and seemed portioned right and was well done. Yeah. I've enjoyed the Shinto swords that I've had.
It's such a light blade.
Yeah, they're fun.
You just one hand, Yeah.
But durable enough. I pushed some of them around quite a bit, and they really hold up quite well. The 25th anniversary one though was just a special one. It looked really awesome. It
Yes.
felt better than the equivalent Shintos because at the time I had a 25th anniversary, a regular like Generation 2 Shinto, a first generation Shinto, as in like still having like the black, like a more modern looking one. And then I had like the old, really old, like original OG, but I think before it was even called the Shinto katana. It was just like the
Whoa.
Paul Chen katana. Um, and I had a couple versions of that. I had like 8 Shintos at the same time. One of them had like a really deep story on it too. So I got to feel the blades evolution
That's
and some
crazy.
iterative stuff over time. And the 25th anniversary was the best feeling among the bunch and the coolest.
Oh yeah.
Yet at the same
By
time,
far.
the 35th anniversary, the 30th anniversary Musashi was a dumb sword. I thought. I didn't think it was cool. Like the 25th anniversary Shinto was fucking awesome. But the 30th anniversary Musashi was just like, oh, you made this sword like kind of it was a folded
Yeah.
steel,
I
blue
remember
handle.
it had the folded steel and which was like,
Okay.
and it had like the blue, yeah, it had the blue
Yeah.
Ito. But yeah, in comparison, the folded steel looks nice, but the the Shinto with the all silver fittings is like really,
And it had this Sageo that was black and white and had like a
yep,
dragon.
really nice looking
Like,
Sageo.
yeah, it was all, it was some pimp shit.
Plus like the Hamon is like the like
Yeah.
that really cool fire Hamon. That's super
So
badass.
they used
Damn.
to come up for sale secondhand quite a bit for around $500. And I'm kind of,
Oh,
in the many regrets that I have of things I haven't bought. It was the 25th anniversary Shintos that came up for $500.
yeah. It's like,
Now that does not happen so often.
how many of these were even made? It doesn't
I think
say.
250, I think.
Oh man, that sucks. That sucks. Oh, I want one so bad.
Well,
Maybe
when
if
you
you
put
see
that
one pop
energy out
up,
on the
let me
internet,
know. If you're not gonna
anyone
swipe it,
sees a 25th anniversary Hanwei Shinto,
hit this guy up.
then, yep, ping D.
Skyjo checkouts. Most have Bohi.
Yes,
I've never seen a Skyjiro sword. I've never held one or used one, but that would be cool. Maybe, yeah. Depends on what kind of
Seawave.
sword it is.
I don't have the Sea Wave out with me at the moment, but that was the Sea Wave was a Dragon King sword. And we talked about the fittings on Dragon King, but that was like the ocean themed one that was really very crisp, lovely fittings.
Yeah, I think
for
I know
Dragon
which
King.
one you're talking about. Let me see.
I saw a bunch of Dragon King stuff at the Blade Show, and it all has a very pleasant and good look to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw the like Dragon Horimono on one of the higher end blades that was there, and that was also fun. I always liked the Dragon Horimono more than the Fire Guardian on the Kami.
Yeah, the Fire Guardian's okay. It's pretty inconsistent though, because the one on mine does not look like the one in the pictures. I'm like, this guy looks
Sometimes they make them a little
weird.
different. I had a few Kami at the same time, and I've had a handful of them over time. But you can see the disparity in how they draw the Fire Guardian. Like sometimes the Fire Guardian is jacked, and sometimes
Yeah,
it's a little more like Buddha. It's
my guy's like way too tall. His like torso is like way longer than it should be, so it's kind of strange looking. Um, but it's like that's so hard to get consistent. Like someone's freaking sitting there hammering it out. Um, yeah, this Sea Wave looks cool. The Ito looks like it's all over the goddamn place though. But I guess it depends on which one. Like they're all probably very different. Do like the Hamon or the Suba. Suba's really cool. I like wave themed katanas.
Waves and Dragons.
Waves and
What's your,
dragons, man.
is the Kami your favorite theme, or is there a different theme?
The Shinto's my favorite theme. Kami's my favorite just because like it's so nice, and I love the red saya. Like I grew up watching Ninja Scroll, and Jubei has a sword with a red saya, and I was like, that's the coolest sword there is. So that's one of the main reasons I like the kame. It's because of the anime Ninja Scroll, and then but you know, I was born on the year of the dragon. I'm an Asian guy, naturally inclined to like dragons. You
Humble
know,
brag.
yeah. So like I was like, this sword is like meant for me, basically. Plus, like, it's very simple. You know, it's just Suba. It's got the. There's nothing else too crazy about it. It's just like very like pretty simple theming, but the Suba itself is like so iconic.
Yeah,
Like the dragon that's wrapped and like looking straight at you with the gold eyes.
it gives me like when I saw it, I knew Dragon Ball Z before I knew the Shinto katana.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
when I saw it, it reminded me of the
yeah,
Dragon Ball Z vibe.
yeah. It's Dragon Ball Z vibes, and like you can feel the scales on it, and it's like really light, and everything about it is just kind of like, oh shit, like. And it's also like was basically one of their first swords, so it's like kind of got that history behind it, which is cool.
You might like the orchid as well. That's another really
The orchid
doesn't have a
looks
bohi.
heavy.
It's not.
It's
It's
not.
like a bohi-less Shinto. It's very nimble and light, but at the same time,
It's got the
like
long handle, right?
it's stout enough to like beat away a stick if you need to, but
Hmm.
it's more of a dainty, easy to move sword.
Interesting.
It's narrower than the Shinto is up at the tip and whatnot too, so it feels real lively in the hand. I really
Yeah, I
like
can
the
see
orchid as
that.
well.
The I remember the orchid from when I was like a kid. I always didn't like the Suba because it's just like a disc with paint on it. It's just like a gloss disc, and I was like, I really want like the Suba to have like,
All the things.
yeah, I want it to have like texture to it, and like the raised areas and like little freaking little doodads. But the orchid looks cool. I like the like how it's like kind of like sharp on both ends, like the
Yeah.
tip of the
The
saya and
the
the
neat part about the fittings is that like they emulate uh Shakudo or maybe Shibuichi if it's dyed really dark. So there's a way you patinate fittings, and they've done it after a style of Japanese Suba that is not one that I guess you see super commonly, but like it's not it's tastefully done
yeah,
in the silvery discness of it.
yeah.
Yeah, it feels really nice too. I really enjoy
Interesting.
training with that one. If you like light swords, then it's a very fun sword to practice with.
It looks nice. I mean, now it's a classic. Orchid's right up there with like Tiger and shit. So it's like
Yeah,
these guys have been around forever.
they've been around. They're good stuff. What when you are making videos, to bring it back to video? I know we're over 2 hours now.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
scheduled this for 2 hours, so you can stop me at any time because I don't shut up. But the what do you wish people knew before they uh, bought swords? Like what advice would you do you think needs to be heard?
Um, that's a good question. I'm actually the video I'm working on currently, like, kind of is part of that. The thing I think, as somebody who grew up and like was young and bought swords and stuff, and I think when a lot of people specifically first buy their first sword or want to get into swords and stuff, they generally look at how do I get the best sword for the least amount of money. And that's a really tough thing because like swords are expensive. They're it's like someone's making this thing by hand, and it's takes time and material and stuff. And when you buy a sword, you want it to last. You want to generally. I've always kind of been under the. I've been in the school of like buy quality so first, so you don't have to rebuy. Similar to like airsoft, like I play airsoft a lot, and like I spent so much money on like shitty gear and like crap guns, and then just ended up having to buy other ones that are better because these break or they're shitty, and then I end up spending way more money than it would have if I just bought something nice in the beginning. So my one thing I would like people to know is that if they're looking to buy a $100 sword, a $200 sword, I would say to not buy it. And I would say maybe save up an extra $100 or $200 and then buy something that's like nicer. Because like there are swords out there you can get, like you can get a Musashi for like $200. That's like pretty good. It's pretty decent. It'll do what you need to do. And I do think it's important people like learn what they're doing before they like obviously spend a ton of money on something and it's like not right for them. It doesn't, it doesn't feel good to them, doesn't look good. And they're gonna spend all this money and like break a sword or like fuck it up. But I do think if you are in the market for a sword and you actually plan on using it and not just like showing it off to your friends or hanging it on a wall, that like you will really want to spend probably at least like $300 on it. Like if you're actually going to take it seriously, like practice and like treat it right and like clean it and use it, I would say, like don't buy $150 sword. Just wait. Buy a Boken. You should do that anyways. Just buy a Boken. And like when people ask me like, what's the best sword I can buy for $100? I tell them, don't even buy a sword. Just buy a Boken. Just practice with Boken. And then save your money. And then once you have like $300, $350, then you can buy a sword. And by then, you'll have enough training under your belt to like actually not fuck it up or fuck yourself up. Yeah. Hopefully.
Yeah, I wonder how many people actually go on to learn to use them and train with them and whatnot. I have no idea.
The percentage, yeah, that is a good question. I imagine like some backyard training is like pretty high, where they like swing it around, but like actually looking into actual proper form and like how to properly do things, that's probably like
it's so different.
5%, maybe less.
It could be just the way I learn. I can be a little thick-headed sometimes, and being able to be self-guided. So there are some things that once you learn, it feels like I can practice them at home, but practicing them at home seldomly increases my skill as much as like kind of maintains it.
Yeah.
Or maybe makes it more efficient, which can be an improvement. But if I don't get like in-person instruction, then it like I really easily draw some false conclusions about how things work. And even after decades of doing martial arts, when I was at the Atlanta Blade Show, there is a Katori group that operates in Atlanta as well. And so I said, hey, I'm going to be in town. Is it all right if I come train with you?
Yeah.
And the teacher that is there, Latvi Sensei, is amazing and moves really, really well. He's a great teacher. But also, like, it's like I've been doing this for a really long time, and like I don't know how to do anything. Like I'm doing all the things wrong. And that was the instruction I asked for. I'm not complaining about it. I learned a lot while I was there. But yeah, there's a ton of stuff that you don't get without like the in-person,
like an actual instructor. Yeah.
I think the same thing can be said of like a lot of things though. A long time ago, I wrenched my back pretty good. And I remember yoga helped me get out of it. And so my wife did some stuff at home and we would do a little bit of this and that at home. But as soon as we went to like guided instruction, things that online were like, hey, move and sit this way. It's like, all right, well, this isn't that hard. And then the instructor there would be like, okay, well, now just kind of like lift your shoulders up and curl your toes. And you're like, oh, my whole body's on fire.
Yeah.
And so those like two little things made this thing that was easy all of a sudden, challenge very different parts of my body. And I never would have thought to do that. The same thing seems true with swordsmanship. Like you move away and you see it done in like movies, but it's not accurate. And if you try to learn it yourself, like it doesn't always make sense, like the way you would do it and why. So
there's definitely a limit to how much you can teach yourself, because a lot of my sword background is self-taught. I have a martial arts background growing up. Like I did taekwondo and all this stuff because I'm Korean. And then I did like it's a
wait. They let me in too. Is that why they kicked me out? I wasn't Korean enough.
No, yeah, you have to be Korean. You get a couple free lessons if you're white, but if you want to stay for much longer than like blue belt, you got to be Korean. So I did martial arts all growing up, and then I did kendo. and I started taking kendo like pretty seriously. But then I realized like the whole reason I got into kendo was because I wanted to use real swords, and I didn't like the like tippy tappy nature of kendo. I was like, okay, like you tap me on the head, but I fucking would have speared you. I would have skewered you alive, and like, or like you tap me in the wrist, but I chopped your head off. So I found it like not very fun, and it was more of a sport. So then
Hmm.
I was like, I want to do kenjutsu and I want to do tamashigiri. So I bought a bunch of books. There was no like internet videos really. There were like a few that just show like people who know what they're doing, like doing like iaido and like teaching how to do iaido. So I would basically watch those videos, read books on like forums and stuff, and I would just practice in my backyard like every single day. I would just do that all the time. And then I eventually did start doing like Jeet Kune Do, and my instructor who was teaching Jeet Kune Do also did kenjutsu. So like he would, that was the first time I had like an actual proper instructor like instruct me, and yeah, I learned more in 2 months with him than I did in 2 years of swinging my sword around in my backyard, and like having someone to be
You're
able to
like,
be like,
oh, you're doing a whole bunch of shit wrong. Got
yeah,
to unlearn a bunch of stuff.
yeah. I mean, he was like, it was especially helpful because it was learned under the context of like actual combat and
Okay.
not just like, oh, I'm hitting a paper target or like hitting a piece of wood with my stick and just doing drills. And one of the things I learned a lot during that was that when it's not just about like iaido and like form, and which is extremely important, and the training is like invaluable and it teaches you so many good things and like muscle memory and all that. But like when it is actually comes to like actual combat and fighting somebody, a lot of that kind of goes out the window a little bit. But the reason why you learn it is so that when you are in that position, it's more muscle memory and like reactive, and you're like used to doing it, and you're not gonna fuck up. So it was really helpful to. He was like a little more lax on in terms of like the exact like form and like posture and position I have to be in to do everything, as long as like there were results. So that was kind of like the philosophy I took into my training, and then I continued to learn through like online videos, and I had like DVDs and like books and stuff. So that was how I trained myself for the most part. There were no like kenjutsu classes or dojos where I was from, so it
Hard to
would be
find.
interesting. It's hard to find.
Yeah.
I would love to find one in like
I'd imagine there's gotta, well, it's not like you're, I'm not sure
there's
whereabouts you're located, but
I'm like
there's,
right in the heart of LA. So like you would think there would be, but what I found, because when I first moved here, I wanted to find a Jeet Kune Do class. What I found is that because I'm in LA, yes, there's a lot of people and a lot of resources. There's so many fake places that are just like trying to like bank on people wanting to like come to Hollywood and like do the Hollywood shit, that like actual true martial arts artists like dojos and like places to practice are way more difficult to find than you'd imagine, because a lot of them
well,
are just like kind of like the Hollywood touristy kind of thing. A lot of fake martial arts places in LA. So anything niche like kenjutsu or Jeet Kune Do and stuff is like pretty tough. You're gonna have to like go out and drive like probably 45 minutes to find one.
yeah, I only know the Katori group that I'm in. It has a spot in Napa. There's a Napa, but that's pretty far up there from you.
That sounds like somewhere that would have some pretty legit dojos. Like in Los Angeles,
Everyone's
it's
like,
all a bunch of fake
come
shit.
learn how to swing swords fakely.
Yep,
Fair enough.
there are way more schools to learn how to do like wushu or stage combat than there are actually learning like real martial arts. There's a lot of
Interesting.
like jujitsu and stuff because that was like a big craze, but a lot of those places here are fake too. So it's like you're just dealing with a
Oh.
lot of bullshit in LA.
Oh, that's a bummer. I think
Yeah,
that's probably a problem everywhere. And you don't know as a student, right? You come in and like you don't know if the teacher you have is legit, and you
Nope.
really, uh, yeah, there's like a lot of trust involved because you have to kind of get to a mental place at some point where like you can recognize the shits, and
Yeah.
that's tough if like that's all you've ever learned.
Yeah, or you're just brand new. You have no clue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a tough one to be in. What what videos are you like? If you could make any video and it would do well, and you didn't have to worry about like numbers and any of that kind of stuff, and you had a budget, would the trip to Japan be like the video you would most like to make, or is there something else that you would love to do?
Well, I would love to do the trip to Japan just because I had never been to Japan and I would want to go. That's more of an excuse just to go to Japan and like make it a business expense. The video I really want to do that I've been wanting to do for a while is, can a katana cut a man in half? And I want to get a ballistics gel torso and shoot it with a phantom at like 4,000 frames a second and see if I can cut a man in half in different angles, different, like straight down the middle, straight across, diagonally. I think with enough practice, I would be able to do it. I think I would be able to do it. The
Yeah,
ballistics gel torso, yeah, and like hitting it in the right spot, and like not hitting too many bones as you cut through. But there's no footage of this. I've watched a lot of Forged in Fire and a lot of YouTube videos. There's no shot of a man cutting a body clean in half, and I think that would be really fucking sweet.
yeah.
Really might get demonetized, but you know, it would be very cool to
I
shoot
think it
really
might
nicely.
because like holding them up is hard. So they usually get like suspended from the back or have
Mm.
a pole ran up through them or something like that. Because I think they kind of frump over if you just kind of
Yeah, you'd have to have something to really keep them. Maybe like a,
the PVC spinal cord will have to be the
yeah,
peg or something that runs.
you'd have to have it like bolted to a table or something that's like a permanent table, and just like try to go for like here under that, like you do
Is
that.
it the demonetization that's prevented you from doing it, or that
No, it's
ballistic
just
gel is
the
really
ballistics
expensive?
gel torso is so expensive,
Yeah,
and then the phantom camera is also very expensive to rent. I know I have I have a buddy who has one, and they also shoot a lot of guns at ballistic gel torsos. Just like it requires me to go to Texas and like film in Texas. So we've been in
funny that that
talks.
might be cheaper than.
Yeah, we've been in talks about it. I think it'd be cool. That's something that's like something I really want to do, and like I think would do really well, and then also would be a fun ass video to make, and something that like I've kind of wanted to see online and I haven't ever seen.
You
You
gotta
know?
do the body test then too. Like, can it cut a man in half? And like, can you do a three body cut? And then if you can, like, sign your name on the sword and like
Oh
squiggle
yeah.
in gold Sharpie, so you can
Oh
be
hell
like, I
yeah.
tested three
That
bodies,
that would
D,
be
and like write it
crazy.
in gold Sharpie, and it'll be
Like
like the gold lacquer three body test.
do one and like okay I can do one and then like stack them and like do multiple like with a freaking Okatana or something.
Well, yeah, they'd have the body tests, and so like I
Yeah,
think
but
it'll
they
say
would like
like,
lay them down.
mhm.
Yeah, yeah. So like that's cool, but I want to do like standing, like a live, not a live target, but like someone who would be standing in front of you. I think that'd be really sweet. What
Yeah.
about you? What's your dream video?
Uh, well, cutting more interesting things would be fun. Like if price wasn't an issue,
Yeah.
it would be fun to uh, like take examples from every vendor, just have all of them at once, and then be able to go through like some of the various things. But that, I would be able to cut 1,000 mats with a sword, or set up some sort of jig to do it for me to evaluate.
Oh, that'd be cool.
the steel so that it had some measure of consistency. Honestly, like if I could make any video and budget wasn't a concern and I could do whatever I want, I would just hire people to make content for me to watch. That would probably be it. Like I don't, it's not that I mind doing the creative stuff or that it isn't fun, but it started to make to fill a void, so to speak.
Same.
And
That's kind of why I did too.
but like I'd much rather consume it. And so if I could
It's way
find
easier.
somebody that could speak history and somebody that could move it, and I don't know, bring the I would probably do that and then sit back and watch the content and be like, that's cool.
Yeah, each day you wake up with a new video, you're like, oh, cool. Oh,
Yeah.
that's a cool video. Yeah.
I'm not sure
Yeah.
if that was worth $6 million, but
Yeah, this is like something a billionaire would do. Be like, all right, you're gonna start a YouTube channel, you're gonna make a new video every day for me, and better be fucking good.
Yeah,
And
I want to see weird shit about swords. That would be a really incredibly
is that what you
stressful job.
watch a lot? Like, what do you watch on YouTube mostly?
Oh, that's a good question. There's a fair amount of sword related content. The other folks in the space that post about this sword or that sword, I watch that. What else do I watch? Well, geez, mostly that. There are there's this thing called the AI guy. I don't like listening to Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
But he made this story with the voice of Joe Rogan as the dungeon master, and like Donald Trump plays a wizard.
Oh yeah.
Like,
I've heard that one. Yeah.
And it's on this like campaign that's 65 episodes long now with AI voices. Never liked watching that kind of stuff before, but like I picked on that one. There's a few this is that's like I don't know. Yeah, but mostly a lot of sword related content on YouTube is primarily, or like book recommendations when I'm looking for things, like people that have talked about books that I've liked and then have like other recommendations. There's that. How to fix stuff. How do I make my camera do this thing?
Some tutorial stuff. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't watch a lot of sword videos. I think the only sword videos I watch are your videos. I'll be honest.
I watch a lot of those too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you got to make sure, like there's not a random black frame or something. Yeah, I don't watch a lot of sword videos. Like sometimes I'll watch stuff on like forging. I really like watching like documentaries on like Japanese katanas and stuff like that. But most of the stuff I watch on YouTube have nothing to do with what I do for YouTube. I think that's kind of like, I don't know. I like distance myself from it because I'm like working on a YouTube video. Whatever I'm watching while I'm working on that YouTube video better have nothing to do with what I'm working on. Just to like
I suppose that's fair though. Like I professionally, I deal with like supply chain and logistics and demand planning and math and stuff like that. And so if I need something, then like I don't know that YouTube is where I would engage, but every now and again there's like some sort of presentation, a lecture, a talk about a new concept, or like a case study on something interesting, or minutes from a lawsuit or something like that can be found on YouTube. Not minutes from a lawsuit, but like some sort of televised or recap component of it. And so I'm pretty loath to like do it professionally than like consume it as while I poop kind of thing. Like that's not fun. But for me, the sword stuff is a hobby. And so like I do it because I like it. So it probably makes a little bit more sense that like I also consume it because it's a hobby and a source of joy for me as opposed to like if you do it professionally, then it becomes a job and that kind of kills it a little bit for you, I'd imagine. It doesn't mean you don't like it, but
you're not gonna like over consume on it. Yeah. It's because like the problem for me is that I've turned all the things I enjoy and I'm passionate about into my job, which is like a double-edged sword.
Yeah,
but
that can kill the fun. A long time ago, I used to like really be into like I was an audiophile and really into like music and like AV gear and that kind of stuff, and working for a company that distributed it, I would say, and like working installing it and doing that kind of work
Oh
really
God, yeah,
killed the love.
yeah,
And
yeah. I
now,
bet.
like, there's an element of care. There's a tolerance threshold, but it's not. Uh, I don't. It killed the hobby quite a bit for me. It killed the ability to even enjoy it.
Makes
So
sense.
I can understand. Hopefully, you don't have the problem, because YouTube can, which is funny because like there's so many kids now that really desire doing this job, which is really funny that like a laborious, thankless job that like you don't matter by default, right? Like you go in and you devote all your time, effort, and resources into building something that can be taken away at an instant outside of your
Yeah,
control. And people clamor for this job. And it's like, but on paper, this is so shitty. Like, I'm a very
yeah,
mediocre supply chain manager, and I make more doing this job at not a top tier level than most of the top tier creators. Like if you look at the hundreds of millions of people that fancy themselves content creators, and you take
yeah,
like the top 1% of those people, the top 1% like makes more than $1,000 a year doing content creation. It's like, that's baffling. Like the some of the top people in the world are just working for free. and
yeah.
and so it's a tough job. I'd imagine, like, especially if you combine it with your hobby, that hopefully you have other things you enjoy.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of why I did the sword thing, because I was like, I want to do stuff, and it's kind of become a job, but it's fine. It's it's still, it helps a lot that I have something else. Like you have your main job. Like I have another channel that I do that is like
Isn't that just like the same job though? Like you do the two jobs then?
it is the same job, but
And it's your other passion, video games? Like, I get to
yes,
escape into video games. I don't talk about them on the internet. I don't work with them
yeah,
professionally.
it's okay. It's a double-edged sword, but it's a nice sword. I like
Yeah,
it.
the
Yeah,
swords are awesome. So
swords are fucking cool, and it's hard to complain. Like a lot of kids want to be YouTubers because they see all like the successful ones driving Lamborghinis and like having mansions and parties every night, and like that's what they show you. But they don't show you, the 8 years of making videos that no one cared about that led up to that, or like a lot of the stuff they see that they think is like through YouTube is not. It's like they're already rich, like they have rich parents and they're rich and they are doing this because they don't need to work, and it's not the other way around. So like that's what they see, and like, oh, that's like they could do it, I could do it. It's like, well, I mean, it helps to get views when like you already have a mansion, or like you already have rich parents and like a bunch of people you can film videos with and a budget to do stuff with. So it is appealing to kids, but they don't really understand the amount of work that goes into
it
it. Like I've been
it
doing
seems
YouTube
like
for
people are pretty transparent about that though now, between burnout and like a lot. It seems
it's
like people that love the job, but also that like nobody is hush hush about the amount of work that goes into it. And
it
and so
depends, I
I
guess,
find,
how old you are,
yeah,
like the kind of people you're watching. I think I'm
okay,
talking more younger kids, like young like kids in middle
I am
school, the
very
people they
old.
watch. Yeah, like they're watching kids that are like 17. These 17-year-olds, like they're not their video about them being like, oh, I'm burnt out, is like not going to get nearly as many views as something else they could do. So like there are people talking about it, but I think they're like in like the mid 20s, kids who have been doing it for a long time. Yeah, I've been doing YouTube for almost 14 years, something like that, in some
Eek,
in some capacity. Yeah,
that's
so
that's a long time.
it's a long time. I'm an old guy.
You're a geriatric on YouTube. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah. I'm like 1,000 years old in real life. Yeah, it's fine. It's cool. I
yeah.
think it's great that you have like a day thing, and then like YouTube is like your passion, because you've been really like pumping out content. You've been doing it.
It's a little bit to keep up on.
Yeah, I
What had
bet.
happened was I got a little bit of vacation time, and
Hmm.
so I've been able to kind of get some larger ones out. And then
Nice.
now I'm out of vacation and I'm not really ahead. So there will probably be some more concise, less ambitious videos
Yeah,
because
that's
it takes a
fine.
lot to break stuff and keep it up. One a week is pretty challenging to
1 week is
maintain.
brutal.
You know, it moves along. You learn some stuff about filming and like batches and
Yeah.
planning ahead, but like it's still um, like you don't know what's going to happen, right? Or how long it's going to take. It's tough to plan, tough to
Yeah.
film it all.
And
It
then
also
all the
takes like a
editing
lot
and
of
stuff.
space and edit. Remember
And,
what the hell you were talking about, or like what was good.
yeah, and then the setup and then the fucking voiceover. It's a lot of work, man. Yeah, as I remember, we talked like a while back, and we were just talking about videos and stuff. And I was like, yeah, you should like, you're like doing it, and then you're like, yeah, I have a day job, and I like just do this is just for my side thing. I was like, oh, that's crazy, I was like, you don't want to like. I kind of it seemed like you wanted to like do this as a thing, and you're like, no, I don't. I actually specifically don't want to do this as a thing. So, oh, okay, that's interesting.
Yep.
But then yeah, you just been pumping videos out. I'm like, damn, these are like this consistency is crazy. Like you put a lot of work into it.
YouTube does not seem to care about consistency. If it's
Mm,
about sword specific reviews, YouTube is I'm just grateful that I have a free place to post stuff, you know,
yeah, I
like
mean,
that.
but just looking at your subscriber count alone is like clearly it's like working. Like it's
I
clearly doing something. Like the views might not be
yeah,
like skyrocketing, but like the fact that they are getting consistent views and your subscribers are consistently like going up at a good pace is like
I am
that's it.
surprised that that happens. At the same, like I can't help but look at YouTube as a platform though, right? So when I see the little niche corner of it that I occupy, I'm glad that it's helpful and that like the content seems to find the people that are interested in it, and the community of people that are interested in swords and buy them seem to find value in the content. So that's good. I mean, at the same time, like it feels like there are channels out there that like their niche subject is making fart noises with slime, and they have like millions of subscribers to listen to fart noises of slime, and
Yeah.
they're like ASMR quiet fart noises, like that's got 10 million. And so like it seems like there are a lot of people interested in a lot of kind of different weird obscure things, and swords are just don't happen to.
They're low on the list.
They're
They're
low.
they're
I don't know that
they're
they're low on the list. Like people generally are interested, maybe not in the format that I put them out, but like swords are universal and cool, and people seem to generally like them. But YouTube, I'd imagine like weapons are taboo and don't get like the same kind of push. But that's all
in
right.
a
Like
way.
it's still
At
free.
least you're not into gun stuff. That'd be rough. That's rough, dude.
Yeah.
The yeah, the whole like there is a lot of people out there and there's a big audience for sword stuff. But you can never compare yourself to other things on YouTube. That's just like impossible because some of
No,
these
I
things are like so geared towards children, and like that's basically like hacking the system because there's so many children on YouTube and they like just like so many iPad babies just like watching the same video over and over. And like I have friends and like I'll ask them and they're like, yeah, my kid just watched this video 30 times in a row, just over and over and over and over and over. And I ask them like why they do that, and they're like, what are you talking about? And you're like, oh, I mean, just like why did you watch that 30 times? They're like, because it's funny. I'm like, okay, that tells me everything I need to know about YouTube analytics. So like if it's like fart noises, yeah, or like what a butt looks like that's like those videos are gonna be endlessly more successful. Um,
that's all I'm saying though, is like there's a lot of work that goes into it and not necessarily a lot comes out the other end.
yeah,
If I were to judge it by doing it, and so it at least like trying to be successful as a YouTube creator. If this were what I was really gearing to do, then I would be like an overwhelming failure at it. If I needed to monetize it and make money off of it, I mean, not that I don't get anything. There's been some super chats that come in, and there's ad revenue that chips in a little bit, but on average, I get less than one to Tommy Matt per video in terms of income. And like I can't make content with that. Like I can't pay for the internet service per year with that. So let alone like feed myself and that kind of thing. So
it would be rough.
Yeah, and so if I looked at myself in that lens, I would have to say like, well, this has failed catastrophically, but I don't have to, because the goal is to have fun with swords, and
well, I mean, from the lens of like you're doing this because you're just really passionate about it, and you want to share that with other people and make videos that you want to watch and like put information out there that you think is cool or useful, and then I would say you are a resounding success.
Yes, that's the goal. Seems to be working. But cool. Not everyone has that luxury, though. Not everyone, after working a day job, wants to make YouTube videos with their time.
Yes. So I mean, like, as far as resounding success goes, you got a good job, you got a beautiful family, you got a cool hobby, and a channel that is successful. It is successful. If anyone knows anything about swords or like watches sword videos on YouTube, they definitely know who you are.
Yeah,
that's pretty successful.
I was surprised at how often I got recognized at Blade Show. That was also a weird.
Oh, I bet. Oh yeah. Did people want to take pics and stuff?
A couple, not a lot. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not like it's hard to make it through the crowd or that I get recognized a lot. But bear in mind that like I'm just a dude, and every now and again there's somebody that I talk to on YouTube, and I'm sure you get it as the owner of a large channel where they run into you and you're like, oh, like I'm a celebrity to you. Like that's
this is weird.
This is a weird scenario. Like, because to me, I'm
just some fucking guy. Yeah,
there's some fucking guy.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
So it happens, and it's a very strange thing when it happens. Weird.
Yeah. It's cool though. It's nice. Like you're like, oh, I like, I
made a thing.
I entertained this guy.
Yeah. It was nice. There were a couple times where I was talking to somebody and assumed the person wanted to talk to like the smith I was talking to at the table, and then when our conversation wrapped up, they would say like, hey, fan, nice to meet you, and I got to shake hands, and it was very it was humbling. It was really nice. That's cool, man. To see. There are also people like, I recognize you, and then I'd be like, yeah, there's a lot of people with similar foreheads. A lot of this room is there's a dearth of balding white men in here.
Yeah.
Cannot blend in. So, and then it'd be like, haha. But then I'd like hold up a sword, look, and it'd be like, Matt Jensen.
Yeah, hell yeah.
That's awesome, dude. In my hand, like it makes sense.
Yeah, and see like that. So like you're making a difference in people's lives, and the fact that they recognize you and would go up to you and say something. I mean, like sometimes I recognize people and I'm like, that's cool. But like I wouldn't go up to, like if I would have to be pretty into them to go up and like make myself known to them,
Why? Like what's the holdup of doing that or not?
Because for me, well, I also live in LA, so like you see a lot of people like you would recognize like either at like a party or something, or like other YouTubers or whatever. I think for me, I just don't want to bother anybody. And I don't want to be like seen as like, oh, you're like kind of annoying me. Oh, your camera cut out. But if I really like them, I'll like, I don't care. I'll like go up and like make myself know. I think Matt
gotta switch the camera battery. I'm having the same problem you did.
Yeah, so that's mostly it is just like I've seen people and be like, oh, I know that person. They make great videos, or like, oh, like I'm a fan of their movies or whatever. But I don't go up to them or say something. If I like really like them, then I have to. I'm like, I'll never get the chance again probably, so I should go up and say hi. So yeah, there's that.
I guess I don't know when I live in an area where it is not common to run into celebrities, so I don't exactly have to worry about it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a time though that I ran into somebody and then was like, hey, oh, my camera's still frozen. Change the battery though. I'll fix it.
You have a real stern look on your face. Yeah, I
Perfect.
mean, you've never like ran into a celebrity and been like, you notice them, and you're like, that's cool, but like, I'm not gonna go talk to them. Like, there's no way, you know. Like if I like saw Bruce Willis at a bar or something, like I would never speak to him. I'd be like, oh, that's cool.
No, I
But
don't
like,
think so.
but like if it was, I don't know. But
Yeah,
like,
I can see how just because somebody is, I recognize them, wouldn't be enough for me to go up and say
you'd have to really.
one thing or another. But like if there was something that I found impactful about their work, or I was like a big
Exactly.
fan or something, then
You'd be like, I
tip
have
my hat,
to.
nice to see you, something.
And it's more specifically, it's less like, oh, you need like proof you met them. It's more just like you want them to know that they made an impact on you.
Yeah,
That's how I feel about it. Yeah.
It-
Where you're like, I want them to know that I appreciate what they do. Kind of
yeah.
thing. Yeah.
But provided that it wasn't like I'm jumping up on stage or interrupting something, or the moment wasn't inappropriate. But if it was, then I don't think I would be shy. I don't know if it's because I haven't ever run into somebody, or I have and I've said something and I just don't remember it.
Mhm.
But I also don't like the selfies aren't a thing that I
Yeah,
do.
I don't do that. I the most I'll ever do is I'll go and be like, hey, like really loved what you did in this, made it, it was I grew up watching it or something, or like it was really impactful for me. Like it's nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Maybe shake their hand and then like walk away. That's it.
But I want to say, like, if I saw Sho Kasugi, right?
Yeah.
Like original Revenge of the Ninja.
I mean, you would have to get a selfie at that point. Like
I don't know if
there's
I'd get a selfie, but I just say, like, I don't imagine when he was making those movies in like the 80s that he thought there'd be like a generation of children that watched it when they probably really shouldn't have.
Yeah.
And like, I imagine it's not a story that he hasn't heard before, but I would probably, if it was appropriate, like go up and say like, hey, I watched your movies when I was a kid, really enjoyed them. Thanks for making cool stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, the selfie and stuff, I don't think I would do, which is also something I don't necessarily. I can see doing it with like a YouTuber, right? That's like small. If somebody comes up and takes a selfie with me, they may well end up in chat, and I will be like, hey, I remember when I met you at Blade Show. Like, that was cool. But that's because like I'm a small creator, and it's easy for me to remember the people that would come up and introduce themselves to me, and the likelihood that I will like engage with them as a human being, and I will be like a person that and or on a first name basis with is probably quite high.
Yeah.
But I like Sho Kasugi's never gonna fucking remember me out of a crowd. Like I'm just some other dude who was like, I like ninja movies. So like it's we're not going to be chatting in the future. There's
like a very short. I got a real short list of people I'd ask for a selfie.
Is Sho Kasugi on it?
I feel like if he was looking like and he was looking good, like I was like, oh okay. I haven't seen him. I mean, like in terms of like he's pretty old now.
A tight romper,
He's got a tight butt. Yeah. No, it's just like he's pretty old now. I imagine. So like if he looked really old, I'd be like, oh man, probably not. Like, but I'm trying to think of somebody. Maybe like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Maybe. Schwarzenegger, you go up.
Like maybe like if it was like an appropriate situation, like
you wouldn't come up and be like, yo, maid fucker, come on over here, selfie time.
Just like someone like iconic, where it's like, whoa, yeah, I don't know.
Schwarzenegger, maybe, like in Conan, like I don't know. I don't know if I would.
It's just hard because they don't look like you want them to look. It's like
it's funny. Like you're just
not as hot as I was hoping you would be. No.
Yeah, no. I always thought it was strange, like the selfie thing, because like you don't, if it's a person that you're like never gonna see again to like prove, I don't know. I guess like Schwarzenegger is like a big enough guy though. I asked my daughter like, do you know who Arnold Schwarzenegger is? And she's like, no. And I was like, how have I wronged you? Daughter, come watch Conan with me right now.
Yeah, she's like,
Uh,
that's like dumb stuff for boys. And you're like,
yeah,
damn, it is dumb stuff for boys.
yeah, you're right.
Yeah, you're like, I remember when I like first was dating my girlfriend, I'd be like, oh, have you seen this movie? And she's like, no, do I look like a dumb boy to you? And I'm like, oh, you're right. That is like the dumbest boy movie ever. I was like, you've never seen Highlander? She's like, why the fuck would I have ever seen Highlander? I'm like, oh, well, it's like a movie about this guy who's like a master swordsman and he has to battle people. And oh, okay, it actually makes a lot of sense. You never saw this movie. She's like, I'm a girl, you know that, right? Like, why the fuck would I ever go out of my way to watch this movie? Yeah,
That's great. I'm a girl.
Yeah.
I don't watch tripe like that.
I'm not
That's
a stupid little boy. It's like, oh fuck.
Does she support your sword habits and interests? Like, is it
Yeah. She's the reason I even did a video. Like the
like you should do it? You're a dumb boy, and there are dumb boys on the internet.
yeah. It was
We
we
can
were
get them
we
money.
were in the pandemic and we were just like drunk and hanging out because we couldn't leave. And I remember like we randomly we found your videos and we were watching your drunk reviews and stuff. And I told her the story. And I was like, back when I was in high school, I used to love katanas. And like, she was like, really? Like, what was your favorite katana? And I was like, oh, I love the kami katana. Like, I always wanted it. And, you know, that was like up there. And the Shinto katana was really cool. Mind you, at this time, I didn't own any swords because when I moved to LA, which was probably like 8 or 9 years before this, I gave all my swords away to like my friends and like my brother and stuff because I didn't want to take them with me. I kept the one sword, but wasn't collecting. And I told her about these swords, and she's like, "Why don't you buy those swords?" And at the time, I had money, and I was like, "You know what? I don't know. I don't know if they make them anymore." And I looked online. I sat there on my phone looking online, and I found the Shinto katana, and she was like, "You should buy that sword." And I was like, you know what? I should buy this sword. You know what? I earned it. And like, I was during the pandemic, so I was just like not doing anything else, not spending money on anything else. I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I've deserved this. And I always wanted it since I was a kid. So it's like a childhood dream. So I bought the Shinto katana and then I searched for like another hour and I found one seller online from Russia who had a kami katana. They were sold out everywhere else. I could not find one anywhere else, and I bought it on the spot. So I bought both those swords in the same night. And then when I got my sword, I decided to make a video on it. And that's the whole reason, is because she was like, you should buy it. If she didn't tell me that, I probably would never have ever made sword videos ever. So it's a combination of you and her.
Yeah. So did you give her the best girlfriend award ever? Because it sounds like she is.
No,
awesome. You are a dumb boy. Awesome.
Yeah.
Speaking truth. Promoting sword content.
She really is the best. And then she helps me shoot all my stuff, and you know, she makes my jokes funnier, and she freaking helps. She does my thumbnails and shit. She's great.
Do you do a lot of the editing, or does she?
I do all the editing.
Okay.
I do all the editing, and then I'll like let her watch it, and she'll give me notes, and I'll tweak stuff here and there, and But then she does my thumbnails, but I do all the editing.
Is it hard for her to like have to work on you and then like be with you? Like, if
it is, she doesn't tell me. It probably is. It probably is. She's like, I'm so sick of looking at your stupid fucking face, going like this. Yeah.
Yeah, the YouTube surprised big face.
Yeah. I try my best not to do ones with my mouth open because I just imagine people drawing cocks in my mouth. So I try to keep my mouth closed, but I'll open my eyes. Yeah.
Imaginary cocks people might draw.
I'm afraid of that.
Are they drawing these? Are they? Does somebody print it out?
No, they're drawing them in their own minds. Because when I look at a thumbnail where someone's like, I'm just like, I could draw a dick.
You put a cock right in there in your mind.
Yeah, I could pop one in there so quick. It's like in my mind, I was like, oh, like a little MS
Okay.
Paint. Yeah,
When you were thinking draw, like I was thinking like I gotta fucking print this shit and then like
yeah.
find a
So
pencil.
mail it to 'em.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just find it so obnoxious,
Okay.
and I try not to do that. So I like ride that
Well,
line.
that's the thing that YouTube seems to do. I've noticed that they seem to monetize bad behaviors, right? The things that I think are it's not as much cringy as just like not helpful, right?
Well,
Are
it's because kids.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
it's
only
just kids.
because kids. Literally 80% of YouTube views and what they analytically like monetize and prefer are because of children.
Huh.
Literally like 5 to 11-year-olds.
Is that like mental age or physical age?
Both.
Okay.
That's why it's most of YouTube. Um, so yeah, like if it appeals to children and makes them click on it, and that's why like people being mad about stuff and like complaining, or people going at things, it's just bright enough to capture a kid's attention for a second to they click on it, they'll watch it 20 times.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why it's like the bright blue background and the person going like
Yeah.
just children.
It seems really cringy, or like titles that aren't what the video is about,
Hmm.
or
They're purposefully misleading or just like bad
yeah,
grammar, and like
yeah,
there's a lot of like tricking people. Like
yeah.
you'll trick kids
Yeah, there's
into
there's a
watching a
fair amount.
video.
There's a
That's a
fair
big
amount
part
of
of
that.
it. And like just like as if you can get them to click on the video and then just like edit it in a way where it's like so frantic and no this and then we're doing that, and they don't even have time to process in their tiny little brains that what they're watching is useless garbage, then that's how you become a millionaire.
Well, I've missed the boat on that. I've made the mistake of labeling my videos with what they are and putting what they are
You're
in the
fucking up, dude.
thumbnails. And only recently, I think it was advice from you where it was like make thumbnails, because I
Oh
think
yeah,
for a
yeah,
long
yeah.
time
I remember
I just
that.
was like just not making thumbnails. I'm like, ah, fucking people will fine,
It
whatever.
helps.
But yeah, it has helped. It's worked. You know, some tweaks have absolutely helped. But I think I'm a little late to the party to do like, but you know,
You could do
but
one
what
funny
this?
one, like an overly edited, just like really dumb one, and then like it'll get a ton of views and you'll hate yourself.
Yeah. Well, that seems to be what happens is people are like, all right,
Yeah.
make a video about this. And so I try and I make a video about like 5 things. And I'm like, but all the fucking context and knowledge is missing. And then like the video does well. Or I recently made a video that wasn't all that pleasant. There's a sword and I have some questions about how it was made. And, you know, it's not intentionally drama inducing, but the subject matter and the insinuations kind of make it negative on the whole. Uh,
Yeah.
and it does really well. And so it's like YouTube seems to really at least say like the most successful content you make is the least helpful and also the most like rage inducing. And those two things seem to be like the directions YouTube's like, hey, maybe you want to make more stuff like
You
this.
want to do
This
some
is
more
what
of
your
that?
audience wants.
Yeah, it
We're a good job.
turns out people either are children or they want to be angry about something. Yeah. It's kind of bleak, but it's fine. We'll stay in our lanes and just like
Yeah.
make some videos that we think are cool, and this is a big enough audience out there. I do hear you though on like the overly informational stuff, like especially for my content, like I see huge drops in retention and views in any video where I remotely try to explain stuff to people that isn't like in a dumb joke. Which like sucks because like that's kind of the content I want to make, but like I guess I gotta just be more dumb.
It's just
It's gotta dumb my shit down way
yeah.
more.
Yep. And hide all the knowledge inside of humor.
Yep,
And yeah.
and
And
make
then
each quip just 2
yeah,
seconds long and move
one
on to the
after the
next
other
thing.
after the other, right?
Yep.
no context, and
No
there's people who
context,
are
no
wrong.
history, no
Yeah.
anything. That's how people want it, you know? That's
Well,
how it is.
I think that that terrible and sad note is probably the best place to end this on.
Yeah,
We went
that's
an
that's a
hour
good
and a half
spot.
over. The future, the end is nigh.
Yeah. No, it's good. We're chilling. We're just gonna make videos. We're like from now on.
Yeah. So
It's
if you
fine.
see us make it just now, I don't know that I'm ever going to be able to look at one of those without trying to like mentally draw a cock in its
You're
mouth. Now
welcome.
that was
You're
not a thing
welcome.
I did, but
It'll happen
now
every
it's
time
something I
now.
can't not do. That's great. That's great. All right. Well, thank
Yeah.
you, Dee, for joining me. For those of you that have not seen, Cerberusarms is linked in the description down below. You should go check out the channel, and and thank you for joining. Thanks everyone for keeping the chat
Yeah, it's
lively,
fun.
even though I ignored you most of the time. Again, thank you.
All right, thanks guys. That was fun.